Good afternoon, everybody. This is, we're going to be opening the meeting, the steering committee meeting at 4:02 p.m. on June 25th. I'd like to welcome everybody. This will be a good and interesting evening. I'd like to have, accept the minutes from June 11th, 2019. Is there any omissions or additions to it? Can I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is, all in favor? We're going to be opening the meeting, the steering committee meeting. So moved. We're going to go ahead and have a group interview with stakeholders this afternoon. Bob, did you want to go ahead and take this, or do you want me to start it off? An interesting evening. You got the
I'm on.
mic.
I just want to make sure I was talking in a second that could hear me. I can take over and walk through the process we've done in the past. And I'm Bob Metcalf with Mitchell & Associates, we're one of the consulting teams involved in the project, and with me is Christy Mateo from Grohl Palmer, and is one of the other members of our consulting team. What I'll do is I'll kind of walk you through and give you an overview of the parcel for those of you who may not be very familiar with it. And see if I can do this with my laser pointer. The parcel is an 86.7 acre parcel. It fronts on North Street, and then has frontage on School Street. The existing property had been approved for subdivision a number of years ago. The alignment that you're looking at in here was the alignment for the roadway that was part of the approved subdivision, and that's what has been roughed in coming through the site, as you can see it from both ends of either School or North Street. Then there was some clearing that occurred for some of the building windows for several of the lots that are part of that division. Fronts on North Street. The parcel itself environmentally, we have two stream segments, one that starts here, connects in here, and another one that comes here. Both of these come out of larger wetland complexes, and there's some off-site. And they merge here and connect, and then they run under North Street and dump out into the Kennebunkport River. From both ends of either School or North Street. There are three significant vernal pools identified on the site for some of the building windows. Prior project was being reviewed. There's one in this location down here. Part of it actually is on the Wallace Wood site. So what you're looking at is that dark area is the actual significant pool, and that's 100-foot no disturb setback around that. And the other one is actually within the CMP right-of-way, and then it goes off-site, and then that setback is really that lower corner. CMP has 150-foot wide easement, utility easement for their transmission line. Bisects the site in this location is here. It's about 1,300 feet back from North Street as to where that easement exists. The parcel right now has zoned village residential from North Street up to the power line, and then everything from the power line back out to School Street is. The other one is actually within the CMP right away. On site, there are 16 acres of freshwater wooded wetlands. CMP has 150-foot wide. There was an acre and a quarter that had been approved as part of the permitting process for constructing the road. There were small pockets of wetland that were crossed in those locations, and then a stream crossing in this location. Current zoning precipitated the location of the road in this location and here. There's a 75-foot setback from the stream of no disturbance. And that's why this road section actually wound up along this alignment in here. And actually a minimal waiver was granted for a short segment in here where we're just under the 75 feet. And on this end here, as the site is very neck down, there had been a road approved in here that ended somewhere here that had been done by a prior owner when they were going to build a house out back in here. So they had roughed in the road to a certain point, and we stayed with that alignment because there had been wetland impact from the stream. Part of that, so we were not disturbing any additional wetlands. This road section actually wound up along this alignment in here. Roughly, there are 52 acres of developable land within the parcel itself, and that's defined based off of the areas that include the land area that was allotted for the development, and then there's some additional land up in here that was not part of the development that was preserved as part of the design that has opportunities for development. Utilities serving the site, sewer and water were both stubbed in from the North Street entrance at this location in here. Power would come overhead and then gone underground to serve that. So power, sewer, and water services have all been identified in terms of availability for the servicing of this property. Land area that was allotted for the water district only had one entrance in here, and they were also looking at the potential of being able to tie in or close the loop on their water main. So that was something that was part of the review process. Utilities serving the site. In terms of context of where you are, from the North Street entrance, it's roughly a quarter mile. This location in here. Power towards the and then gone underground with the fire, a little bit the fire station, and then it's about a half a mile as the crow flies to Dock Square, and then from the other side and the water district School Street entrance, just to give you kind of an idea where we are. Consolidated School is just kind of off the map down here. And so we're about a mile, just about 3/4 of a mile from the School Street entrance to where the school is. And it's about 7/10 of a mile to Dock Square, to Cape Porpoise. Towards the, let's see, with the fire, a little bit. The butters to the property, to give some context. Half a mile. The parcel, large parcel which is along School Street. Where you see the power lines coming across through here. This is the McKay property that School Street entrance, just to give you kind of edge of the property itself. Charlotte Woods is located here along this access point coming into the site. Foxbury Woods is over in this location. Bailey Court is down here. There are several parcels owned by the Daggett family up on this corner here. Bishop's Wood is up in here. The Weintraub property is this entire parcel. There's this side of the site, and there's the Cape Run along School Street. You see the power lines coming across. Somewhat of an overview of where the property is, the extent of what's available in terms of egress access points to the property, and what the abutting situation is. The purpose of the meeting and the purpose of the whole here. I put the wrong thing down. The comprehensive plan, talking into my laser pointer wouldn't do me very well. The whole intent of this plan, master planning process, is to be able to create a roadmap for the town of what to be able to, and the community as to what to be able to do with this parcel, which addresses what the best interests are as far as a community assessment as stakeholders at large would like to see happen on the property itself. So as consultants, we're gathering all the information. We started the stakeholder groups. We had an initial public kickoff meeting to get the general public to do participation. Working with the steering committee and getting feedback from the steering committee, and taking all this information, leading up to what will be our next major public event is going to be a visioning session that's going to be on the weekend of July 13th, Saturday morning from a community assessment of stakeholders at would like to see 8:30, we'll kind of a welcoming session. At 9 o'clock, we'll go into a review, again, some of the overview of the property. And then we're going to break out into groups and sit down with maps and image ideas to kind of discuss what opportunities this site can avail itself to the community, so we can get more input from the public. After that, the consulting team will break down, and that's going to be a consolidated school. After that, the consulting team will break down. We'll come back here, and we'll spend the rest of Saturday into the early part of the evening working on trying to take everybody's comments and everything we've seen, and then back here again on Sunday, and doing the same thing again on Monday. And the public's welcome to walk in Saturday afternoon, anytime on Sunday we're here, and then Monday right up until what opportunities. Kind of an overview of what the consulting team has come up based on everybody's public input. And we'll wind up with developing a concept scenario. Will probably be multiple scenarios that we'll be looking at that convey some of the ideas that everybody has thrown at the table as we start through this visioning. So that'll give us kind of a nucleus to start working with, and then to start trying to finalize what this master plan.
And doing the same thing again on Monday.
That's
And
one component of an overall assessment.
Saturday afternoon.
With that,
anytime
tonight,
Sunday
part of
we're
our,
here,
this afternoon,
and
part of
then
our process
Monday
is
right up
dealing with the
to
various stakeholders in the
kind of
group.
an
I know that we
overview
have
of what
invited
consulting teams come up based
this
on
evening
everybody's public input.
for
We'll
the
probably wind up
the
with
library,
a concept
Cape Cod
scenario,
Library,
probably be multiple
Historical
scenarios
Society,
that we'll be
PTA,
looking
the
at
school department.
that
The school
convey some of
department
the
can't be
ideas
here.
that everybody is.
How many
thrown
people
at the table
are here
as we
from
start
those
through this
committees?
vision. So that'll give us
Rotary's
kind
here
of
also.
a
Rotary's
nucleus
here
to
also.
start working with, and start trying to.
So
finalize.
what we have, did you receive the questions?
It's one component of an
So
overall.
we've
assessment.
discovered as we go through this,
That,
it's better
tonight,
sometimes
part
if we
of
take
our
one
afternoon
question,
part
go
of
from
our
one
process is dealing
stakeholder
with
group to the
stakeholders
other,
in
and
the
we
group.
can
I
try
know
and
that we have
document comments.
Invited.
We've discovered over the past, as you start responding to some of these, sometimes you've already answered some of the follow-up questions, so we'll try and take those and be as concise as we can in putting the information together, so. How many people? Oh,
Microphone, you
Yep.
know, folks, whenever it's your turn to discuss, so feel free to come up, use
what
some of
we
these
have-
other microphones
did you
here.
receive the
We can pass the
questions?
handheld around, so.
We have plenty of microphones.
We've discovered as we go through this, it's better sometimes if we take one question, go from one stakeholder group to the other, and we can try and document comments. We've
And I've also
discovered
got
over
extra
the past
copies
as
of
you
yours.
start responding to some of these, sometimes you've already answered some of the follow-up questions, so we'll try
So-
and take those and be as concise as we can.
Who do we want to start off with?
Together, so.
I'm just trying to look at this stuff.
Microphone, you know, folks, whenever it's your turn
Do
to
you want to start with Rotary first,
discuss,
since they're
feel
right
free to
there?
come up with some of these other microphones here.
Hi, everyone. As you know, the Rotary is not a big
Could you,
group.
state your name?
Oh, my name is Cornelia Stockman. I'm a resident of the town for 30 years now. And
And I've also got extra copies.
I represent the Rotary, but there is really no one idea that the Rotary has come up with because we haven't discussed it as such.
I'm just trying to look at this.
What I'm going to say is going to be primarily
You wanna
my
start with Rotary
opinion.
first, since they're
I
right
used to be
there?
a real estate agent, and I am familiar with this
Hi,
property.
everyone. As you know,
because
the Rotary
I was
is
one
not
of
a
those
big
people who
group.
tried to get it sold originally.
Oh,
and
my
we
name
failed
is
to do
Cornelia
that.
Stockman.
But that's not
a
important to the
resident of
group.
the town
What's
for
important
30
is
years now.
that the land
And,
be considered
I represent the
a
Rotary.
valuable
but there is
property
no-
for
really no
for the
one
whole town to be able to
idea
use
that
it
the Rotary
in the
has
best
come
way
up
that
with
will
because we
benefit the
haven't
most
discussed
people.
it as such.
I
What I'm
personally
going to
would
say
like us
is
to see
going to be
if we could
primarily
find
my
a space
opinion.
there on that
I used to
land
be a real estate
where we
agent,
could
and I am
have
familiar with this property.
a solar power
I was one of those people that tried to get
generation,
it sold
so
originally.
that this whole piece does not
failed to
have to
do that.
become dependent.
But that's not
Again,
important to the group.
on
What's
some other
important
ways
is
of
that
getting
the
electricity to
land
the
be
people.
considered
That's my personal opinion.
a valuable
Otherwise,
property
I
for-
want to be sure that we're
for the whole
taking
town
into
to be able
consideration the
to use
need
it
in
in
town
the best way that
for
will benefit
affordable
most
housing,
people.
especially for the
I
workers that
personally would
live
like us
here,
to see
that
if
want to
we
live
could
here and
find a
can't
space
because of the high
there on that
prices
land
of all
where
the
we
land.
could have
I'm going to
a
pass the microphone
a solar power
to Harvey. Is there anything you'd like to say?
generation, so that this.
Hi, Harvey
piece
Flashen
doesn't
with
have
Portside
to-
Rotary. As I say, we do not have any
Again, on
public
some
statement as a
other way
club
of
per
getting
se, but
electricity.
whatever the town does decide to
my
do,
personal opinion.
I'm sure that our club will
Otherwise, I
enthusiastically
want to be
work
sure that we're taking
for the
into
implementation of the plan and to help
consideration
out
the need
as we do with many other
for
projects in
affordable
town.
housing, especially for the workers that live here, that want to live.
Whoever the next
here
committee
and
member
can't
is.
because of the high prices of all. I'm gonna
And
pass
just
the
your name and then what committee you're on.
My name is Elaine Mitchell, and I am from the Consolidated
Hi, Harvey
PTA.
Flashen with Portside Rotary.
I
As I say,
think
we do not
Our
have
major
any
concern would be
public
to
statement as a
entice
club
young families to
per
come
se,
in.
but whatever the
We have a
town
declining
does
enrollment
decide to
issue
do,
at the
I'm
Consolidated
sure
School.
that our
I
club
have
will
a second grader,
enthusiastically
and when
work
I started at the school, we
for the
had
implementation of the plan
180-ish
and to help
kids. We're
out
down
as
to
we do with
120.
many other projects
So
in
there's
town.
only like one class per grade for most of the grades.
Whoever the next
It's-
committee member is.
There's been a committee for enrollment to look at the whole district
And
and
just
changing
what- your
town
name and
lines,
then
but
what committee you're
changing
on.
town
My name
lines
is
isn't
Elaine
even gonna
Mitchell,
help,
and I am
because you have to
from
go
the
so far out to
Consolidated
get enough
PTA.
students to come in. So I think I agree
Our major
with the affordable
concern
housing
would
to
be
get
to entice
younger
young
families to come in to
We have a declining
Fill
enrollment
the school.
issue at the Consolidated School.
I have a second grader, and when I started at the
I'm Mary
school, we had
Gictus. I'm from the Cape Porpoise
180-ish
Library.
kids. We're down to 120. So there's only like one.
The population
grade,
that
one
uses the
class
Cape
per
Porpoise
grade
Library
for
is
most
an
of
older
the grades.
population,
Um,
mostly.
It's,
Do have some
there's been
younger
a
families,
committee
but it's a
for
retired
enrollment to
population.
look at the whole
And
district.
from
changing
that
town
point of
lines,
view,
but changing town
people
lines
are
isn't
concerned
even
about
gonna
how
help,
will
because
any
you have to go
development be
so far
paid
out
for.
to get enough students to come in.
Because
So I think
our
I agree
population is
with the
pretty much a
affordable
fixed
housing to
income
get
population, and
younger
if their
families to
taxes
come
go
in
out,
to
go up, they have to leave.
fill the school.
So while I understand we want to bring in young people, do we want to
I'm Mary
give the old
Gictus. I'm
people the
from the Cape
boot?
Porpoise
And I
Library.
don't think we do. So that, the finances are a
population
big
that uses the
concern
Cape Porpoise
for the
Library
people
is
at the
an
Cape
older
Porpoise Library.
population,
How will all of this
mostly.
be paid for?
We do have some younger families, but it's a retired
And
population.
and most
And
people at the Cape Porpoise
from that
Library,
point
we
of
are
view,
not really big on change.
People are concerned about how,
would like
how
to
will
stay
any
just the way
development
it
be
is.
paid for.
So,
Because our population is pretty much a fixed income population.
My name is
If their
Pat
taxes go
Georges. I'm a
out,
resident
go up,
of the
they have to
town
leave.
and a volunteer at the Cape
So,
Porpoise
while I
Library.
understand we wanna bring in
And
young
I
people,
would agree with
do we wanna
Mary's
give the old
comments.
people
I
the
am
boot?
concerned
And I don't
because I
think we
haven't
do.
heard
So,
too much in
that-
these
the
conversations
finances are a
about
big
how any of
concern
these
for the
efforts
people at the Cape
will
Porpoise
be
Library.
paid
How will
for.
all of this be paid for?
And I do think that,
And
you
I-
know,
and
I
most
understand we
people at
want
the
to
Cape Porpoise
attract young
Library, and we are not
families,
really
but
big on
if
change,
10 years from
would like
now,
to stay just the way
the
it is.
taxes where the average homeowner here probably pays less than $5,000.
My name is
If
Pat
that's up
Georges.
to
I'm a resident of the
$12,000,
town and a
I think it will
volunteer at the Cape
defeat the
Porpoise
purpose
Library.
of what you're
And
trying to
I-
do,
I
and
would
I think
agree
it
with
will make
Mary's
it
comments.
less
I am
attractive to
concerned
young
because I haven't
families.
heard
So those are
too
my
much in these
Okay,
conversations.
I'm going to have you hold the
about
microphone because I'm going to
how any of
reverse
these
questions and we'll go
efforts
back this way.
will be paid
But in terms of that, part of this whole
I do
master
think
planning
that,
process,
you know,
there's a
I
financial
understand we
group,
want
an
to
economic
attract
group
young
that's going to be doing an
families, but
assessment
if 10
based on
years
the
from
type of
now,
uses we start
the
looking at,
taxes where the
determine
average
what those
homeowner
overall
here
costs may
probably
be,
pays
whether or
less
not
than
some of the
$5,000,
ideas that come up are
it's up to
not realistic as far as from the
I
community
think
in
it
terms
will
of that type of
defeat
cost. So
the
that
purpose
is a
of what you're
component
trying
that will
to do
become
and
part of this overall
make it,
plan to give the
less
town
attractive to
some
young
sort of
families.
guidance of how
So those are my
this land could be developed.
I'm going to have you
You
hold the
wind up
microphone
coming
because
with
I'm going to reverse
public-private
questions.
partnerships, those are some of the
But in
opportunities.
terms
There
of
may
that, part of
actually
this
be,
whole master planning process,
outsales
there's a financial
to
group,
developers
economic group
to
that's gonna be
do
doing
that. Those are some of the
assessment
scenarios that can
based
be
on
out
the
there.
type
They
of
haven't been
uses we
refined at
start
this point,
looking
but just to
at
give you an idea of
determine what those
some of the
overall
things we'll
costs may
be
be,
exploring
whether or not
with
some of
the community
ideas
as we
that
go
come
through
up
the session.
are not
Okay.
realistic as
One
far
other
as from
question,
the
if I
community
may.
in terms of
Will
that
the
type of
master
cost. So
plan
that is a
be
component that
will
will
be a
become part of this
referendum,
overall
will it be
plan
on the ballot?
To give the town some sort of guidance of how.
I'll let Alan
this
answer
land
that
could be
question because I know we had it once
developed.
before.
Wind up
And
coming as public
as far as
I think
partnerships,
anything has
those are
anything to
some
do
of
with
the
money will be
opportunities that
on the
may
ballot,
actually
yes.
be, you know,
Will probably be at
outsales,
town meeting.
Okay.
to developers. to
Again, the
do
master
that. Those are some
plan
of the
really is just going
scenarios
to
that
provide
can be out
guidance.
there. They
It
haven't
isn't
been refined at
necessarily
this point,
something
just to
that
give you an idea
requires
of
an adoption that
some of
says
the
this
things
is what
we'll
is
be
being spent.
exploring with,
The numbers that come out of the master plan are really to give guidance of what cost ramifications there are. The next step after the master planning may be, you know, we'll be providing next steps for the town to take and how to look at, you know, encouraging what type of development comes out of that
I
as a
think
guide.
anything has anything to
And
do
again,
with
this
money.
plan is really a guide for the town of how to work towards envisioning what can actually
Again, the
happen on the
master
property
plan
and
really is
actually
just gonna
making it
provide
happen.
guidance.
So
It
it's
isn't
a
necessarily
long-term
something
process.
that requires an
It's not
adoption
something
that
that
says
when
this is what is
this
being
master
spent.
plan is finished up
The numbers
in
that come out of the
October,
master
that
plan are
then
really
you're
to
gonna
give
turn around and
guidance
say,
on what
okay, for
cost
sale sign here and that
ramifications
sort of
there are.
thing. It's just
The next step
initial
after the
guidance to
master
give the
plan
town
may be,
the ability
you know,
to
we'll
then
be
take it
providing
and see what
next
elements
steps
actually work.
for the town to take and how to look.
It's a little
at
bit longer, it's not gonna be that
encouraging
quick of a
what type of
turnaround, if you
development
will,
comes
for
out of that as a guide. And again, this
the
plan is really a
Next
guide.
questions, and I think some of the, again, as I said when we started, sometimes we wind up with some of the same answers coming up as we go through each one of the questions and they overlap. The next question was, what concerns does your committee have regarding growing demands and needs for the town, i.e. public services, housing needs, commercial use, open space? How should the property be used? And I guess, I know we kind of gave a broad brush, but in terms of each one of, as far as the library is concerned, the PTA, you know, what things do you see beyond
Next
just that
questions,
one
and I think
specific
some of it,
item
again,
that
as
you
I
said
when we started,
that
sometimes we
you
wanted
feel
with
as though
some of the
should
same
be looked
answers
at?
coming up as we go through each one of
I
the
guess I'm not
questions
clear.
and they overlap. I'll read the question again. What concerns does your committee have regarding growing demands and needs for the town, i.e. public services? What concerns does your committee have regarding the growing demands and needs for the town? So in terms of, do you see there a need for public services? In terms of, are there additional housing we've already somewhat touched on? Commercial uses, open space, and how should the property be used? Specific items that you said. So those are kind of the, you feel as though should be points that, if your committee is discussed and you have points you want to raise. I'll read the
I
question
think
again.
one concern that I personally have is, in terms of, when this is developed, will we have
What concerns does your committee
be
have
able to support a
regarding
fire
the growing
department for them?
demands
Will
and needs
EMS
for the
be able
town?
to
So in
support
terms-
this
do you see
development?
there
How
a
many
need for
people are
public
we talking
services?
about living there?
Are
How many,
there
if it's
housing
a
we've already
development and
touched
there's
on?
lots of people,
Commercial uses, open space.
and they're year-round residents,
how should the
maybe
property
some of
be
those people
used?
will
So those are
volunteer
kind
and
of
become firemen, or maybe they'll be in the police
Points
force, but
that, if your
if it's
committee is
developed
discussed and you have
into
points you want to raise.
houses for seasonal residents. I think one concern, it's just, it's that I'd be a tax, I think, on those departments. In terms of, when this is developed, look after that, have a property, be able to support a fire department for them, anybody really help them, EMS be able
It's a
to
good point for us to look
support
at.
this development. How many people are we talking about living there? How many?
I think if it was, if we
Development,
go to
and there's
commercial,
lots
if
of
it was
people,
developed commercially, can
and
we
they're year-round residents, maybe some of those
accommodate
people will
parking, or are we gonna
volunteer
have
and
to build
become
more
firemen,
parking
or maybe they'll be in the
to
police
accommodate
force,
anything
but
that's commercial?
If it's developed into.
I guess part of that question is, would you like to
Houses
see commercial? Do you
for
think there's a
seasonal
need for
residents.
commercial?
Personally, no, but
Would be a tax, I think, on those departments.
I think we have a lot of commercial. I think
Look after that property.
we need other
Would that
things
anybody
other than
really help
commercial.
them?
It's a good point for us to look at.
Yeah, the commercial end of it has been
If we go to commercial,
talked
if it
over
was
quite a
developed
lot
commercially,
already in other meetings,
Can we
including even a little
accommodate parking?
place
or are we
to
gonna
sell
have to
coffee,
parking
and nobody seemed
to
to
accommodate anything
be
that's
too
commercial?
interested in even going that
I guess
far.
part of that question is, would you?
I
like
think
to
with
see
Dock Square and Law Village, come down to the
No,
Cape, I think we have enough
I think we have a lot of
commercial
commercial. I
already.
think we-
The biggest thing, as you just said, we need is to get low-income housing, either single-family, small houses, or over quite a lot, maybe another meeting, low-income apartments for anyone that doesn't want to own a house, sell coffee. But keep the people coming in here, even going that far, maybe low, middle class, but mostly low-income people. I think we've got enough other people in this town already, but we need some younger people coming in that's gonna help to get low-income housing, protect the other people that are here. And maybe one section of it can be low-income apartment, retirement age people that need to get out of their big house that they have now into some smaller, one-story house, handicap, accessible for everything in it. And, so they don't have to get forced out of town to find a place to live. Let them live where they always have for 50 or 60 or more years. And maybe one section of it can be,
You said that you not.
retirement
really don't wanna see
age
commercial.
people that need
So,
to get out of their
What do you-
big house
how do
that
you
they
feel
have
about
now
assisted
into
living? That
some
would be commercial.
smaller, one-story house,
I would see that
handicap,
as housing. I don't, I see
accessible
commercial
for
as like
everything in it.
stores and
I just wanna
restaurants
And,
and, yeah.
Sure you-
So they
Thank you.
don't have to get forced out of town to find a place to live. Let them live where they always have for 50 or 60 or more years.
I don't think there's any need for a commercial use for that. I would think we need to concentrate on
Really don't want
public
commercial.
services and being
So,
sure that our
What do you-
governmental
how do you feel about
pro-
assisted living? That would be commercial.
departments have what they need
I
to
would see
grow
that as
and to
housing. I don't- I see
survive
commercial as
with the
stores
with the low
and
population
restaurants
that we
and-
do
yeah.
have,
Thank you.
and the multi-million-dollar homes that we have, that really are at risk with
I don't think
public
there's any
services.
need for a commercial use for that.
So would you
I
see a
would think
potential
we
for
need to
doing like a
concentrate
centralized
on
fire station,
public
municipal
services
town hall, those
and
type of
being sure
uses
that
within
our-
the
Yes,
parameters of the
that's
center?
what I mean by public services,
Okay.
yes.
Just
Our
wondering.
departments have what they need grow and to survive.
All right, we'll go back the other way again.
with the low
The next
population.
question is, what design characteristics should be considered in our implementation strategy? And by that question, I think what we're talking about is the style
They
of
really
homes,
are at risk with
in case of municipal facilities,
Public services.
any recreational type uses.
Do you
what
see a
sort of
potential for
imagery, centralized fire station, municipal town hall, those type
I
of
would,
uses
I would
within-
say, you know, the
Yes.
colonial style and the ranch style house would be appropriate. I don't want to see attached condos the way
All right,
we
we'll go
already
back the other
have
way again.
at Foxbury
The next
Woods
question is,
and
what design
that
characteristics should
kind of
be
thing. I think a
considered
single
in our
home
implementation
for
strategy?
families would be great. You know, a
By that
neighborhood,
question, I think what we're
that would be
talking
the
about
thing
is the
for
style
me,
of
to
homes,
make sure that this is a neighborhood.
in case of municipal facilities, any recreational type uses, what sort of imagery?
I would say, you know, the colonial style and the ranch style house.
I would like
be
to see the
appropriate.
character
I don't want
of
to see
the small New England town
attached
maintained.
condos.
That's what we are.
The way we already have
I
at
think it would be
Foxbury
horrible to
Woods,
see some, you know, we don't want to look like Arizona, we're not Arizona, we
For
don't want
families
to,
would be great.
we don't want to look
You
like
know, a
Southern California,
neighborhood.
we're not
That
them.
would be the thing
So
for
something
me,
in keeping,
make
but
sure this is a
I
neighborhood.
wouldn't want to see a municipal complex. I wouldn't want to see a town hall there or a centralized fire station. I would prefer it to just be residential.
Okay. Let me ask a question in terms of, what is your
I
perception
would
of
like
the
to see the
village character?
character of the small New
I would
England
say
town.
the
The small ranch home, the small Cape Cod, that, it would be horrible.
Okay,
to
smaller
see.
lots.
So, yeah, we don't want to look like Arizona.
consider-
we're not
I
Arizona.
guess the way I
Ideally,
would
I would
put
like
it-
to see this broken into 5 lots and put a little house on each one, so like all the animals play, so they don't have to be my garden, but I guess that's not gonna happen. But that's, or just let's put a fence on it and say, welcome to the woods, and go walking, and do nothing to it, but I know that that's not going to happen.
Let me ask a question.
So I
in
would
terms of
say
what is your perception
develop
of
it,
the
you know,
village character?
for our population need, which I do think is a
small
younger,
ranch home, the small
middle-class
Cape Cod,
population. And we do need young people, or,
Smaller lots.
you know, we're all gonna burn and
You
die of heart
consider-
attacks. because-
I guess the way I
Ideally,
would
I would
put
like
it-
to see this broken into 5 lots and put a little house
What do
on
you
each
think about
one,
open
like all the animals play. I'm off my garden, but I guess that's not gonna happen. I would like it all to be open space. Exactly. Or just let's put a fence on it and say, welcome to the woods, and go walking, and do nothing to it, but I know that
Okay, why don't
that's
you
not
hold on,
going
and
to
I'll
happen.
go to the next question.
So I would say develop it, you know. for
Well,
our
that's kind of what I
population,
almost
which I
asked.
do
How would
think
your
is
committee
younger,
group define the existing
middle-class
village area of
population.
Kennebunkport?
We
And I
do
guess
need
part of that
young
question, what I was looking at, is
We're all
when you
gonna
look at the
burn
nature
and
of the
die of heart
homes
attacks
that are
this
along
weekend.
North Street,
Fire
and you go into some of the neighborhoods around Dock Square, you know, that character, that is
I'm
kind
all
of the village
for it.
area, and there are some
I
larger
would like it
homes
all
on
to be
small
open
lots, and there are some
Exactly.
small homes on small lots. So, I mean, is that the type of character, in addition to the architecture, that you see as village idea, the village concept? Well, that's kind of what I almost asked. How would your committee
really sure I
define the existing
understand what you're
village
saying.
area of
I guess I
Kennebunkport?
would
And
like
I
to
guess
see
part of
small
that
homes on
question, what I
larger
was
lots.
looking at, is when you
Okay,
look
so
at the
like
nature
the
of the
homes
across the street here, they're probably on 10,000 square
And you
foot
go
lots.
into
Some of the
some of the
neighborhoods
single
around Dock Square.
Yeah, that's too
You know,
too
that
small, they
character,
need more
that
space
is
around.
kind of the village area. And there are some larger homes on small lots, and there are some small homes.
I agree, I don't think it should be,
So, I mean, is that the type of
I mean,
character?
at least an
in addition to the
acre,
architecture
if not
that you
more.
see
Because I
as
think smaller, it's
village
just
idea, the village concept?
gonna look just as congested as the rest. I think open space with some homes in
I'm
there
not really
is
sure,
better than,
I understand what you're saying.
all
I
homes.
guess I would like to see smaller homes on
Right.
larger lots.
Okay, so like the homes across the street here, they're probably on 10,000 square foot
I think we
lots.
need to keep it at small homes.
Yeah, that's too
Uh,
small, they need more space.
We have enough big colonial size homes in town, and I think that
I
we
agree,
need
I
to,
don't think it
we're
should
gonna
be-
get anyone in here
at
that's
least
low
an
income. We can't be
acre.
talking about
Because I think smaller
big
is just
colonial houses.
gonna look just as
People are gonna
congested as
look
the
at
rest
it
of
and
the
say,
open space with
What are my
some
taxes gonna be?
better than
How am I ever gonna heat
all
it?
homes.
Uh,
Right.
I agree that a lot size, maybe it's an acre or a little bit over homes, so some of the people would have big some lawn, but also maybe have a, and I think the good sized corner of the lot where they could plant their own vegetable garden. It's low income, we can't be talking about big colonial houses. People are gonna look at it and say, what are my taxes gonna be? how am I ever gonna
We're
heat
sort
it?
of canceling each other out with our comments here, but.
Which is fine,
I
that's the whole
agree that
purpose of the
a lot
dialogue.
size,
is to-
So, that's good.
Maybe it's an acre
So,
or a little bit
again, I would
over.
like to see affordable
So some
housing.
of the
I would like to
people
see
would
some
have
open space.
some
and I
lawn,
would
but
like to
also
see,
maybe have a
Public
good-sized
area
corner of the lot where
for
they
the
could
public, at the
plant
use
their
of
own
the
vegetable
town.
garden.
departments.
Let me ask you, since you said you were a realtor, in terms of the village size of the lots or the general village area, do you have a feel for what
Yeah,
lot
I would like to
sizes are?
see, we're sort of canceling each other out there with our comments here, but.
Which is fine, that's the whole purpose of the dialogue. So we'll start back, I'll go to the next
That's
question
good.
now.
So, again, I
How would
would
your,
like to see affordable housing.
does the parcel location provide an opportunity for connectivity to the village area, i.e. the Dock Square area, and to Cape
for the
Porpoise?
public, at the
And
use
if
of
so,
the
what
town.
should those connections include? Let me ask you,
I
since you
have
said
no
you were a
idea
realtor,
how we could get
in terms of the village
the two
size of the lots or the
sections of
general
town,
village area, do you
united
have a feel for
by
what
this
lot
particular.
sizes are?
I'd like to see an acre. But I think it's important that each part of
Alright, so
town
we'll start
keep
back. I'll go to the next
its own
question.
characteristics.
How would
The
your,
ocean,
does the parcel
town,
location
Cape
provide an
Porpoise
opportunity
area,
for
all of
connectivity
that
to the village
needs-
area,
it's,
i.e. the Dock Square
needs to
area,
be
and to Cape Porpoise?
left as is.
And if so, what should those
future.
connections include? In terms of
I have no
connectivity, if
idea
there are
how we
sidewalks
could
through
get
here, I mean, sidewalks would tie into North Street.
sections
As far
of
as that
town.
type of connectivity,
Yes, that would be fine.
bike
So you can
trails,
walk,
walking paths, those type of
walking
things?
paths, absolutely. But I think it's important that each.
Yeah, I think that's very
part of town
important,
keep
and I'm
its-
sure Rotary
its
would
own
endorse that also, that there are sidewalks and walking paths to keep
Ocean,
as much open space and let people
town,
enjoy the
Cape
area.
Porpoise area, all of
Just
that
not only the people who
needs-
end up living there, but people from other parts of the community, because it is
Left as
right in the
is.
middle of town, between
For
Cape
future.
Porpoise and Dock Square, so the location itself
In
is
terms of
ideal.
connectivity, if there are
as far as that
sidewalks
goes.
through here, I
So
mean, sidewalks
if it's
would
going
tie
to be
into
developed, it
North
has to
Street.
be developed
As
so
far as that
people
type
can
of
actually enjoy it
connectivity,
Yes, that would
safely.
be fine.
Bike
Because we can
trails,
walk,
walking paths, those type
walking
of things?
paths, absolutely.
I
Yeah,
think that's very important.
Tom Bradbury's
Rotary would endorse
brought it
also
up
that
as
there
far
are
as
sidewalks and
walking
paths to
trail
keep as much
goes,
open
'cause I guess
space
that
and
he
let
has
people enjoy the
Conservation
area.
Committee there has
Just
a
not only the people who
trail
end up living there, but
started,
people from other parts of the
and
community, 'cause it is
he
right
would
in the
like
middle
to
of town.
see it
Between Cape
continue,
Porpoise and Dock
I
Square,
guess
so the
along
location
School
itself
Street,
is
but
ideal
up here and
as
have
far
a
as that goes.
nice
So
trail
if it's going to be developed,
maybe
it has
on
to
the
be developed so
eastern
people can
side
actually enjoy
of
it
this parcel
safely.
where people can walk all the way out through, and maybe eventually it could get hitched up with the eastern trails. Brought it up as part up in Arundel. Walking trail goes. I mentioned before that maybe it could all be part of the same thing, but have a bike path up through there where kids can be off the road but still have fun riding dirt bikes. And maybe it could be developed a little bit where they could have a little loop or something to people can walk bank a little bit so they could go around it and make it more enjoyable for them. But that could stop at North Street and have a little place where they could turn around and ride back down through again. But have a bike path up
I
through
think I
there
just agree
where
with
kids
the other
can
previous, that I
be
think
off
like
the road but still
walking
have
paths or
fun
trails or and
riding
definitely
dirt
sidewalks,
bikes, and
because it's pretty close
maybe
to
it could
walk to
be
the village.
developed
And
a little bit where they
I
could
think
have a
adding that
little
in would be nice.
loop or something to bank
I
a
also
little
am in
bit so
favor
they
of
could
bike
go
trails and
around
walking
it and
trails.
make it,
But please, if you
more
connect the town
enjoyable
to Cape
for 'em.
Porpoise, put in a
But,
public restroom in Cape
that could
Porpoise.
stop at North Street or
I
have
get,
a little place where
I
they could
get
turn
10 to
around
15
and ride
people
back
a
down
day
through again.
coming, asking if they can use the bathroom at the library, and there is no bathroom at the library.
I just
So
agree
we
with
need a toilet.
the
in
other
Cape
previous,
Porpoise.
that I think like walking paths or trails or definitely sidewalks, because it's pretty close to walk to the village.
You know what? That would be great, because then we wouldn't have all the little boys peeing in the bushes behind Atlantic Hall, okay? So I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. Put in a public restroom.
Ditto.
I get 10 to 15 people a day coming, asking if they can use the bathroom at the library, and there is no bathroom at the library.
The next
So
question is,
we need-
what expectations does the committee have, or the group have, for the village parcel? I think we've kind of brushed on some of those. That's where some of the similarities in the questions come
You know
up.
what? That would be
there
great, because then
real
we wouldn't have all the
focused
little boys
elements
peeing in the
that,
bushes
you know,
behind
anything that
Ryan's
you would
car,
like to
okay?
see
So,
specific?
I'm okay with that. It doesn't bother me. No, I think I've
Ditto.
said what I want.
Okay. Uh, The next question is, what expectations does
I
the
have nothing to
committee
add.
have, or group have for the village parcel? I think we've kind of brushed on some of those. That's where
Then the
some
other, the
similarities
last
and
question
questions
on
come.
this is, should the town identify a portion of the site to be
Real
retained for future
focused
yet to be
elements
determined
that,
needs of the
you know,
town?
anything that you would like to
I
see?
think that's a possibility.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important
No,
to
I
do that
think I-
with a full 86 acres there. Who knows what might happen, where there would be a need, and there aren't a lot of places available. So if the land is already there and waiting, I think it's really important to keep at least some of it
Preserve
put
it.
aside.
Thank you.
I have nothing to add.
Okay.
I agree with that.
Then
and
the
if
other,
it's-
the last question
If it
on
is
this is,
agreed
should the
or
town
decided
identify
to
a
do
portion
housing,
of the
maybe
site
they
to be
just do
retained for future
like the
yet to
closest
be
section to
determined
North
needs of
Street
the
and just
town?
do a small neighborhood,
I think that's a
And leave.
possibility.
more portion and just keep growing as the years
think that's
progress
pretty
instead of
important
just developing the
Do
whole
that with
thing
a-
all
with
at
a full
once.
86 acres there. Who knows what might happen.
I would
There
like to
be
see
a
some
need,
say
and
for the
there aren't a
future.
lot
I
of
think
places
it's just
available.
being
So if the
cautious.
land is already there and waiting, I think it's really
I
important
would
to keep
agree.
at least
I
some
think
of
that's
it
improved.
put aside.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other general comments that you'd like to make? Or
agree with
does the
that.
steering
If
committee
it's-
have any questions
If it is
based on
agreed
some of the
or
comments?
decided to do
that,
housing,
have
maybe
been
they
made
just do
tonight?
I
like the
think that
closest
they've
section to North
brought
Street
up
and
some
just
good
do a small
ideas, you know,
neighborhood.
some
and
good
leave
questions, and we should,
More
you know,
portion and
we'll
just
probably
keep growing
find some
as
good
the years
answers for 'em.
progress instead of just developing the
That's
whole
what we'll
thing
strive
all
for.
at once.
Okay. Well,
I would
thank
like
you
to
very
see
much
some
for
say for the
attending.
future. I
And if
think
you want to
it's
stay
just
for the
being
next session
cautious.
round of this, which is with the abutters that are invited to have the conversation in terms of the parcel itself, you're welcome to stay. Are there any other general comments that you'd like to make? Or does the steering committee have any questions based on some of the
Thank you for
comments that have been made tonight?
I think that they brought up some good ideas, you know, some good questions. We should, you know, we'll probably find some good answers. Maybe
That's what we'll strive for.
that over here, maybe?
Well, thank you very much for attending. And if you want to stay for the next session round of this, which is with the abutters that are invited to have the conversation in terms of the parcel itself. you're welcome to stay.
So our next thing on the agenda is the village parcel neighbors. Is there anybody here that would like to start it off? Is there any questions? Anybody here that would like to start it off? You'd have to keep yourself a microphone. Oh, there you go. Oh. Sure. Okay, just state your name, where you're from.
So I'm Louise Hayes, and Ginny Moody is also with
So
me.
our
Louise,
next
Hays, and Ginny
thing on the
Moody. I'm
agenda
the
is
president of the
Village
Homeowners
Parcel
Association of
Neighbors.
Foxbury Woods,
Is there anybody
and Ginny
here?
Moody is the treasurer of the Homeowners Association of Foxbury Woods. Okay, so the first question.
Direct questions.
Okay. Yeah, so I understood from the letter that went out that the sewer line was extended at this point to the North Street entrance to the property. We originally, when the property was Old Port Village, we had obtained an easement, had been granted an easement to be able to connect our our septic system to a sewer extension that the builder would put in. So our concern is whether we can also have that option. If the sewer line is extended throughout the property, the north street of the property that can be developed, will Foxbury Woods have an opportunity to connect our septic system to that sewer line?
Well, I'm familiar where the easement is, and it was roughly in this location in here. That'll obviously be part of the review process for the master planning and how some of those elements come out, so those comments would be taken into consideration. And again, for those who just walked in, you know, this master plan is really identifying what the
if the
potential
sewer
uses
line
are
is
for the site,
extended
what the
throughout the
restrictions are,
property, the
taking
area
into
of the
consideration
property
all of the
being
community needs
will
as well as the
Foxbury
abutters.
Woods have an
And that obviously
opportunity to
being an
connect our
issue that's
septic
being
system
raised, that
to
would
that
be
sewer
looked at
line?
as far as the master plan.
Well, I'm familiar
whether
where
or
the
not that
easement
can be
is, and it's roughly
accommodated
in
based
this
on
location in here.
the layout, so that'll be definitely
there
addressed.
also be
I can't give you an
part of
answer,
the
yes, it will be, because
review
it's a town
process of the
decision,
master
but planning and how some of
Thank
those
you.
elements come out, so those comments would be
Do
taken
you have
into
any other
consideration.
comments
And
in
again, for
terms
those who
of,
just walked
you
in,
know,
this master
potential
plan
uses for
really
the property
identifying
itself,
what the
concerns that the folks
potential
at
uses are for
Foxbury
the
Woods
site,
have?
Right, yeah,
what
we
the
did have
restrictions are,
some concerns.
taking into consideration all of the community needs as well as the abutters. And
Bob?
that obviously
Yes.
being an
Do
issue.
you,
continuing to raise.
can you bring that other map? But we had a map that actually showed that easement on a map. Maybe you can find that, Werner, so people can see it at,
I can't give you an answer, yes, it will be, because that's a town decision, but
so just to let you know that that is still on a map, whether,
Do you have any other
it's not the one we
comments
had
in
up there,
terms
but
of,
we've seen one as a steering committee. We've seen that
potential
easement and
uses
had
for the
discussion
property
just
itself,
about that.
concerns that the
Right,
folks
yes, I had
at Foxbury
actually,
Woods have?
I had a photo that I had sent to Lori Smith last week of that easement. But I think it was originally.
Can you bring
we had
that other
gotten
map?
from the
But we
town
had a
records,
map
so
that
you have
actually
the same
showed that
photo.
easement on a map. Maybe you can find that, Werner, so people can see it at,
The other question some of
So
our
just to let you know
residents
that
had was
that is still on
whether
a
that
map,
road
whether-
will be,
it's
the
not
road
the
going
one
through
we
the
had up there,
property,
but we've seen one
will
as
be
a
a
steering committee.
thoroughfare.
We've seen that easement and had
From
discussion
School
just
Street
about
to
that.
North Street, or
Right,
whether
yes, I
that
had
will be,
actually, I had a photo
just
that I had
visioned as a,
sent to Lori
community
Smith,
road
last
or
week
whether it's
of that
basically a
easement.
town road that people will use,
I think it was
fire
originally
department,
gotten from the town records, so
anybody
you have the
else
same
will
photo.
use,
Yeah.
to get from School Street to North Street as opposed to going down Old Cape Road or through town.
Well,
The
that'll be
other
part of the
question
overall
some of
master
the
planning and
residents
look,
had was whether
the way
that
that
road
had been
will be a
designed,
road going through the property,
part of it was
will
constraints
be a
because of the environmental
thoroughfare,
constraints in terms of some of its placement.
from School Street
And
to
then
North
the
Street,
curvature was
or
put
whether
in
that
there
would
was
be,
basically as a deterrent to
just
slow people
visioned
down
as a,
coming through
community
what that
road,
development was designed
whether
for.
it's
So
basically a
overall,
town
the
road that
geometry of
people
that
will
is laid out
use,
there.
Fire
The
department.
control speed that goes through
anybody
there,
else
any type of
will use,
development would have
to
speed
get
control
from
on it.
School Street
But
to
what it
North
does
Street
do
as
is
opposed to
provides the
going down
means
Old Cape
to
Road
get
or
between,
through town.
if Cape Porpoise,
That'll be
you need
part of the overall
an
master
emergency
planning.
vehicle to get down there,
The way
and it's
that
during the summer
been
months,
designed,
that's gonna be a lot quicker to be able
part
to
of
go
those
through
constraints
there,
because
and
of the
vice versa,
environmental
if
constraints
they
in
need
terms of
back
some of
up
its
here,
placement.
something's coming from the King
And
Porpoise
the
area.
curvature was put
So
in there was
it
basically
serves
as a-
both
the
places,
trying to slow
both
people down
purposes.
through
It isn't
what that
necessarily
development was
always
designed for.
considered as a
So overall, the
shortcut,
geometry that
although
was
some
laid out
people
there.
will always take shortcuts when they can
Control
find them.
speed that
I've
goes
seen
through
some
there,
where there's a gravel
type of
road that
development
shows
would
up as a
have
road on
speed
a
control on it.
Google Earth
What
map,
it does
and
do is provide
tractor trailers try to go down through it. So,
Cape Porpoise,
but anyway,
you need
you
a
know, that would
emergency
be part of the
vehicle
overall
to get
looking
down
at
there,
the
and it's during the
the
summer
use
months.
of the property
It's
and
gonna
how
be a
that
lot
can be
quicker
configured.
to
So
be able to
those will
go
be taken
through
as
there
part of
and vice
the
versa.
comments and
Back
considerations.
up here and something's coming from the King Porpoise.
And in this plan,
It serves both places, both purposes.
are you trying to
It isn't
decide now whether to
necessarily
sell off
always
some of the
considered as a
property to a developer?
shortcut,
Or is
although
that
some
something
people will always
to
take shortcuts when
be
they can
discussed later on?
No, that would be at the
Gravel
end,
road
basically,
shows up as a
the
road on a
end
Google Earth map
summary
and
documentation will
tractor
provide the
trailers try to
town
go
with
down through.
opportunities of
So,
how
but
to
anyway,
explore the ability
that
to
could be
develop the
part of
property.
the overall looking at
Whether it is out sales, whether it's public-private partnership, those are all the elements that we
Comments and
taken into
considerations.
consideration as we go through this whole master planning phase. In the end, basically becomes the recommendations to the town of opportunities of how to pursue either development, what gets preserved, you know, what gets used, held for future use.
No, that would be at the
So
end.
it won't be a
Basically,
case of putting
the
it for sale sign
end
there right now.
summary documentation will
Because
provide
obviously,
the town with
at being in
opportunities
Foxbury Woods and being, we
how
are
to
so
explore
close,
Mm-hmm.
we would be very
develop the
concerned
property.
if the property
Whether
that
it
was
is
sold
out sale, whether
was
it's
developed
public-private
right behind
partnership.
our property, because
Those
that
are
would
all
create a
the
lot more
elements that we
noise
take into
than if it were
consideration as we
developed,
go
you know,
through this
somewhere
whole
else in the
master planning
property.
phase.
But I'm not sure
In
at
the
what point we
end,
would know that.
basically becomes the recommendations to the town.
Part you wouldn't know at the end of this
how to
plan, it
pursue
just basically
either
identifies
development,
potential
potential use areas, types of uses, what could be considered. To respond to the question about the sewer easement, there's a 20-foot wide sewer easement that comes from the roadway, which is just about as the curve came in, and then this goes out to School Street. So that's where that dedicated easement was shown on the approved plan.
Create a lot more noise than if it were
other
developed,
points?
somewhere else in the property. And then is there consideration at this point to putting any recreation, like a pool
potential use
or
areas,
a
types of
hot
uses
tub
will-
or anything like that
Could be
into
considered.
this property?
I guess at this point, there are no plans to do anything. The sewer easement
Okay.
is a 25. The concept is to come up with ideas that the community would like to see happen with this property.
This goes out to.
And our charge is to
So
try
that's
and
where
pull
that
together
dedicated easement was shown.
potential plan, options, feasibility for the development of the property. So by no means is this going
And
to
then
be
is
a
there consideration
design at the end of this
to,
process in October that says,
putting any
here you are,
recreation,
this is going to be assisted living, this is going to be affordable housing type of things. It will identify potential option areas for the potential types of development to do anything, which would
Okay.
include open space. The concept is to come up with
Okay.
ideas that the
Yeah, some of our residents
community
are concerned
would
with
like to
open
see happen
space or
with this
having
property.
some type of recreation.
Our
like a
charge is
pool.
to try and pull together
And then
potential
the other thing
plan,
that came up was,
feasibility.
I presume there's
for
no way
the
there'll be
development
commercial
of the property. So
development
by no means is this going to be
in terms
a
of.
design at the end of this
Well,
process.
we've asked those questions,
Whether
whether people want commercial.
This is going to be assisted
We
living.
haven't heard
This is going to
an
be
awful lot of positives about wanting commercial
type
out
of
there,
things.
so
We'll
I think it's
identify
part of the
potential option
engagement.
areas for the potential
Okay,
types of
that would
development
be something
occurring.
to concern us as
Which would
Foxborough
include
needs
open
to.
space.
Okay, thank you very much.
Discussion.
Yeah, some of our residents are concerned with open space.
Hi,
or
I'm Norma
having some
Lamb,
type of
representing
recreation.
Wallace Woods, along with,
Christos Katsakis.
And then the
and
other thing that came up
we want you to know how much we appreciate being
I
considered.
presume there's no way
in
there'll be
this
commercial development as.
The issues that should be considered. We think the
Well, we've
preservation of
we've
the
asked those
natural
questions, whether
character,
people want commercial.
like the arboretum
So,
concept.
We haven't heard.
We like the idea of recreational and educational areas
Part of the
throughout.
engagement.
Uh, Something akin to log home with trails and,
Okay,
just
thank you very
nature
much.
facilities that everyone can enjoy. We'd like to preserve as much green space as possible to protect the native habitat.
Christos Katsakis.
We want you to know how much we'd like to limit residential development to see how it goes. We don't think that a building will come the natural approach to anything. So if there was to be a residential development in educational areas throughout stages, something akin to we also think that consideration should be given to the cost to taxpayers. We don't want to make affordability worse for the current residents of town. We think it's important that the goals that we all establish going in be reviewed periodically. So we'd like to limit residential development to see how it goes. That's number one, right? We don't think that it's still.
You can go through, if you've taken the questions and responded, let's do it that way.
What concerns does your group have? Well, we'd like to maintain the open green space concept. We'd like to cite any development away from the school and North Street entrances. And we would like no commercial development in our. We think it's important that the goals that we all establish.
Two questions. One
be
is,
reviewed periodically.
what's the time process that you're looking at? from-
You need to use the mic.
What's the time process you're looking at from the time that the parcel was approved by the town, and then going forward, when you'll make a decision as to what you think the land use will be? Is there any speculation as to what that'll be?
The master plan, the village master plan, the target is to have a plan completed by the end of October. And again, it is a roadmap, it is not a plan that's gonna turn around and say, this is the type of housing that's going here. It's going to identify what those type of uses are, what is the
What's the
most
time process you're
suitable
looking
area
at
for the
from,
various types of uses
the
that are
time that the
identified
parcel
through
was
the
approved
plan.
by the
And
town.
whatever those
And
uses
then
are,
going
they
forward,
get
when you make a
determined
decision
through
as
this
to what
whole
you think the
process.
land use will be.
And when you're
is there
thinking
any
about the
speculation as to what that'll
site
be?
plan, end of
The master
October,
plan,
has there been any
plan,
theoretical financial
target is
planning and models done as to,
That'll be part of this whole process.
so that won't be done until October?
That will be done, the whole plan is completed in October. The stages we're going through is data collection, meeting with the public, we're gonna have that vision use session in July on the 13th. Suitable area. It's gonna be a consolidated school starting at 8:30 and running until about 1. And then, I'm gonna do that now, I'm gonna take a stage. And then
And
from 1
when you're
o'clock
thinking
on,
about
the
the
consultants will be here
site
at the fire
plan,
barn,
end of
working on
October,
developing
has there
concepts
been any
based on the
theoretical
feedback
financial
from the
planning
visioning
models
session,
done as to-
as well as
That'll
the
be
first public meeting,
So
public
that won't be
introductory
done
meeting we
until
had.
October?
And we'll then be here on Sunday working all day long, and we'll be here all day Monday working on it. The public's welcome to come in during that process to see what we're doing and comment on anything, and then we'll do a summary at 6 o'clock on Monday night as the results of what the work has been based on that visioning session. And then I got to do that now. Part of that step, from the uses and things that come out of that session, the consultants will be going to our other consultant who will be doing some of the market assessment in terms of the viability of the ideas that the public has come up with, in terms of the feasibility for the town to pursue any one and all of the ideas that come out of this Monday working on it.
So, another hypothetical question, right, when you're reviewing the financials,
Comment on anything, and then we'll do a summary.
the debt service has gone up
6 o'clock on
dramatically in the
Monday night as the results
2018
of
report, you know,
what
because of
has been based
the
on that
ocean
visioning
wall and
session.
the 84
Part of
acre
that
parcel.
step,
So
uses
how do you
that
consider that debt
out of that
service and,
session.
you know,
We'll be
taxpayer
going to our
assessment
other
when you're looking
consultant
at the
who will be
financial
using the
piece?
market
What's just the thought process? I realize you can't
viability
give
of the ideas
details,
that
but
the
how are
public
you
has
thinking about that now?
Well, I can't give you that answer because our financial consultant will be becoming part of this process as we move into this. So we didn't bring him
Another
because those are
hypothetical
not
question,
standard
right, when you're
questions we
reviewing
would
the
be expecting
financials?
through this. So they did a study
debt
for the
service has gone
town,
up
which was
dramatically
completed
in
in
2018
2018
report,
on
you know, because of the
affordable housing
ocean
aspects.
wall and
So
the
they're
10
familiar with a lot
84
of
acre
the
parcel.
municipal
So how do
financial
you
aspects
consider
of the
that debt
community
service
itself.
and,
So they'll be
you know,
tying
taxpayer
in their
assessment when
current
you're looking at the
expertise and
financial
experience.
piece? What's
is
just
what
the
they know
thought
about
process?
the
I
town
realize
and
you can't
applying
give
it to
details, but
the
how are you
programs
thinking
we start
about that
looking
now?
at is
Well, I
coming
can't
out
give
of
you
this
that
plan.
answer because
So will we get full transparency in seeing those documents prior to? Is it publicly available to look at now?
Bring him, well, it isn't done yet. It won't be done until we get to that particular stage, and everything is being posted to the website.
But it'll be posted in stages, and we'll be able to review it in stages, or just the final report?
Oh, no, it'll be in stages. As things are
Okay, good,
completed, we
yeah.
keep, we've already started posting information on the website that we've completed to this point. So the public, for the public that can't attend some of these sessions, the information's there, so you can track what's going on. So
Okay.
that's the intent. Is
So
because
will we
expect
get
to have
full
more comments
transparency in
back,
seeing
and
those
there's an
documents
email.
prior to? Is it
I think
publicly
it's
available to look
directed
at
to
now?
you or to Lori.
Well, it isn't done
That,
yet.
you know, people that
won't
go
be done
on,
until
see
we get to
information
that
on the
particular
website.
stage, and
If you've
everything's
got
being
questions
posted
about it
to
and
the
comments, you
website.
can send
But
those
it'll be
questions and
posted in
comments to
stages, and we'll
Werner.
be able to
That
review
comes
it in
back
stages,
through
or just the final
whether
report?
it's specific
Oh, no,
to
it'll be
the
in
town
stages.
response,
Okay, good,
completed
yeah.
copy from Werner
We've
or
already
Lori
started
or the
posting
selectmen.
information on the
It goes that
website
far.
that we
Or
have
if it's
completed to
purely
this point.
consultant
So
related,
the
that comes
public-
back to us, and
for
then
the
we'll
public that
develop
can't
in
attend
response,
some of
so
these
that
sessions,
information gets put up
the
as well.
information's there. So
You know,
you
as
can
Norma
track
said,
what's
look,
going
look,
on.
we're really happy to be here.
That's
We're
the
glad to be
intent.
part of the process. We think it's a great way to look at the land use. But some of our neighbors are really severely impacted, the way the road comes in, and their backyards are right on the road, which is just not an acceptable place for their families and their friends and what they're doing. And we're hopeful that there's going to be some consideration, not only for whatever we're planting there, but maybe looking at redirecting the road, because it cuts right through almost their backyards.
Unfortunately, when I was walking
You know, as
through
Norma said, look, we're
the site
really
itself
happy to
and the
be here.
assessment,
We're
that
glad to be part of
road,
the process. We
the
think it's a great
location
way
is
to
predicated
look
on
at
the
the
current
land use.
zoning. There's a stream that
But
runs
some of our
down
neighbors are
through
really
the
severely
75-foot
impacted, the way the road
shoreline
comes in,
setback,
and
which
their
is state
backyards are
mandated
right
setback.
on the road.
So the location where the road
Which
is
just not an
is
acceptable
based
place
on
for
the
their
setback
families
requirements
and their friends and
under
what
state
they're
that the
doing.
town
And
is,
we're hopeful that there's going to be some.
So for the avoidance of doubt, that road can't be moved.
Whatever we're planting
In
there,
that
but
section, a
maybe
good
looking
portion of
at
that section, probably
redirecting the
not.
road, because it cuts right through
But in
almost
terms of
their
looking at
backyards.
buffering and screening, that becomes
Unfortunately,
part of some of the recommendations that would
walking
come
through
through as
the-
part of the master
the site
plan,
itself
how to
and the
address some of
assessment,
those
that
things.
road-
Okay.
So those will be, those are
location is
part of the
predicated on
thought
the current
process,
zoning. There's a
you know,
stream
how
that
you
runs
address
down
what some of
through
the
the
implications are
75-foot
to direct the
shoreline
butters.
setback, which
Okay,
is state.
and then in question number two, right, the,
location where the road
what our
is
homeowner
based
said, look,
on
the
the
maintaining
setback
open
requirements
green space
under
concept
state
is really important, especially from a,
So just so
conservation
for the avoidance of
standpoint,
doubt, that
clean
road
air
can't be moved.
standpoint, and just a
And that
beautification
section, a good
process for
portion
where
of
we
that
are in
section, probably
Kennebunkport.
not.
And that
in
any
terms of
residential
looking
or
at buffering and
recreational
screening,
development
that becomes
is away
part of
from
some of the
school and North
recommendations
Streets.
that
You know,
come
for us, we
through
believe that's really critical, and we are
those will be-
absolutely
those are
against
part of the
commercial
thought
development, which
process.
you've been hearing, I think,
How you
time and time
address
again.
what some
And I hope that
of the
message
implications are
resonates
direct the
loudly with a clear voice And then that question most number two, residents right, do the- not want that. What our homeowner said, Norma? the maintaining open
I'm on
green
3
space
now.
concept is
Design
really important,
characteristics,
especially from a
this one is really
conservation
important to us,
standpoint,
safety.
clean
Right
air
now, it's very
standpoint,
difficult to
and just a
make a left-hand
beautification
turn
process
on
for
a
where we are in
Reed Road.
Kennebunkport.
Once that
And
parcel
that
is
any residential or
operational and that road
recreational
is
development
there, it will
is away from
become
school and North
very
Streets. You know,
dangerous.
for us, we believe
And
that's
as little
really
as I am
critical.
to say it, I don't
And
think
we are
speed bumps and
absolutely
stop
against
signs are going to
commercial
help.
development, which you've been
I
hearing,
think we're
I think,
looking at a
time and time
signal
again. And I hope that
possibly
message
on school.
resonates
It is-
loudly with a
I would
clear
just
voice
ask any
that
of you
most
here
residents
to
do not want
Take a left
that.
out of Reed Lane someday.
Norma?
and you'll get a full understanding of our design characteristics. We'd also like, this one is really important to us, low noise and lighting considerations, because as Crystal says, we're sitting on the road. And maintaining the natural environment, and we'd like it to be consistent with the town character. No walls. As low as I am to say it, I don't think speed bumps and stuff. Yeah, right.
Constantine wire, did you say?
Wire, you know. And I think really the speed limit's really important, and even when you come out of Wallace Woods and you're making, when you come out of Wallace Woods and you're making a left, you can't see the traffic coming from the left because it's like a little bump in the hill, and that's really dangerous, right? And so with the increase in traffic, the safety concern is really big for all of us, especially with all the kids and families that are there. So we hope that that becomes sort of paramount of importance for everybody as you're looking at it and the steering committee. And then also the bike paths and sidewalks, because we think that's keeping in the character of being a family-friendly Kennebunkport town, right, in the Kennebunk. So we think that's really, really important. And then I think Norma will wrap it up with the last. A left, too. You can't see the traffic coming from the left because it's like a little.
What are our expectations for the village parcel?
And so with the
We
increase in
expect
traffic, the safety concern is
enter
really big for
and
all of us,
leave
especially with all
Reed
the
Lane
kids
safely.
and families that are there. So we hope
Like
that
natural
that
barriers
becomes
to
sort of
provide the
paramount
visual and
of
acoustical
importance for
buffers,
everybody
as we've said
and
already.
the steering committee.
And we'd
And
like
then
no
also
significant
the
structures
bike
in the
paths
North
and
Street
sidewalks,
entrance, given its
because we think
proximity
that's
to Reed
keeping in the
Lane.
character of being a family-friendly Kennebunkport town, right, in the Kennebunk. So we think that's really, really important. And then I think
Give a second to
Norma will
walk
wrap
it.
it up with the last two.
What are our expectations for the village parcel? We expect to enter and leave Reed Lane safely. That's right. We'd like natural barriers to provide the visual, as we've said already. And we'd like no significant structures in the North Street entrance, given its proximity.
We finished up the first session, so we're going to continue on through. Give a second to walk it.
I'm going to do number.
Consider giving.
I think we probably ought to again.
Identify which abutters are here.
We finished up the first session, so we're going to continue on through. I think we probably ought to again.
Identify which abutters are here.
Bob, you say you're going to do another brief overview since we have so many people outside?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
I'll do a walk through the whole property again.
All right.
And for those of you who just walked in, I'm Bob Metcalf with Mitchell Associates, one of the consulting teams, and then Christy Mateo from Grohl Palmer is one of the other consultant members. And we have two other members who will be, the faces you'll see as we go through the process, continuing through the process. So, start with an overview. This is the 86.7 acre parcel.
Bob, you say you're going to do
Has frontage on School Street, frontage on North Street. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'll do a walk through the whole property. Alignment that you're looking at here in the dark is the road that has been cut in as part of the prior approved subdivision for the property. Christy Mateo from Grohl Palmer is one
There
of
are
the other
two
consultant members.
streams
We have two
that
other
come out
members who will
of
be,
one
you'll-
wetland
the
here
faces
that
you'll see as we go
connects
through the
here,
process,
and
continue
another
through
one
the
comes out of a
process.
large wetland here, ties in here, and then the stream goes down and goes under North Street and then ultimately out into the
An
Kennebunk
overview,
River.
this is the 86.7
The-
acre parcel.
There are
Has frontage on
16
School Street,
acres
frontage on North
of
Street.
wooded freshwater wetland on site.
Alignment that
This
you're looking at
graphic
here
here
in the
starts
dark
to show you what
is the
that
road that
area
has
is
been
as
cut
far
in
as the
as part
wetland.
of the
So
prior
kind of
subdivision.
it's crossed over with some of the setback issues that are in here.
There are two
There are three
streams
significant
that
vernal
come
pools
out
that
of
were identified
one
on the
here
site.
that connects here, and another one comes out of a large.
One is in this
here,
location
ties
here,
in
right
here,
behind Wallace
and then the
Woods.
stream
Part
goes
of
down
that
and goes
pool
under North
actually
Street
sits
and
on the back
ultimately out
corner of
into the
Wallace
Kennebunk
Woods.
River. That outer ring is a 100-foot no-disturb buffer that goes around that pool. And there's another one located down here in the corner of the CMP easement, and that shows the restriction there. CMP has a 135-foot wide power transmission easement that runs through the site and then bisects the site in this location here. There are 3 significant. The third pool is located up in here near Bishop Woods. And that reflects the 100-foot location here setback buffer around that. There were a couple of other smaller wetland pockets with identified with some vernal pool characteristics, but were not considered significant pools. And some of those occur up in this corner up in here. The alignment for the road was based upon the state mandated shoreline zoning requirements. Power transmission easement that runs through the site. Along the stream corridor, the outer edge that you're looking at here is the 75-foot setback requirement away from the stream that you can't have any development within. This roadway was tucked along this edge to stay outside the 75-foot setback, with the exception of a small area here where we were allowed a waiver of a reduction of, I think some of those occur up in this corner. The crossing in this location here was predicated partly on the topography and then working with CMP in terms of where they would allow the drive to cross over. And then the configuration followed through. When we get down to the School Street end, the alignment for this road is based on a road that was approved by a prior owner of the property who's going to build a house back in here. And I think the road came in roughly to about here somewhere. They had filled wetlands up on the School Street entranceway, and we stayed with that same alignment to avoid any more unnecessary wetland fill. So that basically was the basis on which the alignment occurred here, and the alignment through up to the CMP area. There are roughly 52 acres of developable land. We get down to the School Street end, the alignment for this areas between what is defined as open spaces unimpeded by wetland. And I think the road's roughly to about here somewhere. They had filled wetlands up on the School Street entranceway. There's 16 acres of, as I said, freshwater forested wetlands on the site. The utilities serving the property, sewer and water were stubbed to the North Street end of the property. Power would come in overhead and then be able to go underground to serve the parcel itself. The water district was looking at the potential of being able to actually take the water line all the way through and then stub it into their water mains to make a complete loop, so that was part of the original concept on this site. Adjacencies on this, starting on the North Street end, Wallace Woods is located on this edge of the property here. McCabe property, which is a parcel that, as you can see from School Street, where the power lines actually cut across the property. Consolidated School is roughly in this location down in here. So they hold that pretty much that entire edge of the property. Shawmut Woods is located in this area here. Their water mains to Bailey Court for references on this side, and I forgot the name of the street in here. Adjacencies on this, and then starting on the North Foxbury Woods is located in this corner back in here, and then there are several parcels on the McCabe property, which we have Bishop's Woods, it's on this edge of the property here, and then Swinetrod's property basically is that configuration and borders almost that entire edge of the property itself. Pretty much that entire edge of the property. Golf course is located in this area here. As the crow flies, we're about a quarter mile less to the fire station on North Street. And then it's about a half a mile Foxbury Woods downtown is Dock Square. Here on the School Street side, you're roughly 3/4 of a mile to Consolidated School on this edge. And then Swinetrod's property is consolidated, and then it's about 7/10 of a mile from School Street into Cape Porpoise. Cape Arundel Golf Course. That's kind of an overview of the property itself. As the crow flies, there was a discussion earlier before most of the public, the abutters came in, is that when this property had been approved as a subdivision, there had been an easement to Foxbury Woods to allow them to ultimately tie into public sewers that occurred in that Consolidated School on this edge. So that's kind of an overview of the property itself, what we were doing. I'll give another overview. Essentially, the process of the master plan is to develop a plan for potential use for this parcel that the town can achieve what its long-range goals are. And part of those long-range goals of what we're working with right now is to try and get that information from the public. Because as the residents of this community and the direct abutters, it's your input, this is your community. So what we're trying to do is gather all the pertinent information and ideas to be able to come up with an ultimate plan, as well as with guidelines and recommendations and financial feasibility to be able to move forward. So the master plan at the end becomes a guide for the community of next steps of how to actually deal with the property, whatever that outcome actually is in terms of development opportunities for affordable housing, recreational, open space, whatever the elements translate down through from all the public participation. We showed up to that with the participation process with a couple of questions, and showed some precedent images and types of uses that we had people put a vote on, and that information will be posted up shortly. We're trying to digest all that right now, put it in a format that we can put on the town website, so people who aren't able to attend that will be able to see that information. So the purpose tonight is to get feedback from the abutters. We've already got a few. I apologize, we started a little bit earlier. The first group finished up earlier, and some of the immediate neighbors to this were already here, so we started part of that dialogue. And what I'll do is I'll finish up precedent images. I forgot your name, from Wallace Woods. Put a vote on a couple of comments, and then we'll kind of work our way through. We're going to bring the microphone out for people to be able to speak and answer. Put it on the town website.
We ought to be able to try to keep our questions and answers
So
kind
the
of short,
purpose
because there's a
tonight
lot of people here, and I imagine
is to
quite a
get
few people
feedback
would like
from
to
the
have something
abutters.
to
We've
say
already
before
had
we
a
close.
few.
it.
I apologize. Yeah, good point with the number of questions we have, so maybe we'll just go with the points that we can. So if you want to finish up the last couple of points you had.
Well, this was expectations from the village parcel. We would expect safe entry and exit from Reed Road. And we would hope for natural barriers to provide visual
Work our
and
way through,
physical
we're going to
buffers
bring
to
the
our
microphone out for people to be able to
houses.
speak and answer.
And no significant structures sited on the North Street entrance, given its close proximity to Reed Lane.
Short, because there's a lot of people here,
And
and I
should the town
imagine
identify
quite
a
a few
portion to be
people would like to
retained
have
for
something
future
to say
use as
before
much as possible.
Yeah, good point with the number of questions we have, so maybe we'll just go with some points that we can. So if you want to finish up the last couple of
This
points
is
you
not a
had.
commercial.
No.
This was expectations of the village parcel. We would expect safe
So we
entry
had
and exit
representatives from
Reed Road.
Wallace Woods and from Foxbury, and I know some people are just immediate abutters, and they're not part of a homeowners association, and they're probably just other general members of the residents that are very concerned about what happens here. So because of the time frame that we've got about 40 minutes to go through the questions and wrap up. So, thank you. To Alan's point, we're gonna have to try and move through these quickly rather than going through all the questions we had. If you have points or questions you want to ask us, we'll try and go through those as quickly as possible. And I guess with the microphone, I'll just ask. Wallace Woods and Foxbury, raise your hand. I know some people are just immediate abutters, and they're not part of a homeowners association, and they're probably just other general. Right next to Al.
George Acker, Charlotte Woods.
And you're speaking of the mic, George.
Okay, sorry.
Because of the time
George
frame that
Acker,
we've got,
Charlotte
we've got
Woods.
about 40 minutes to.
One thing, I mean, we're concerned about
wrap up.
the type of
So,
construction up there.
To Alan's
Prefer to
point,
see
we'll
if
try and
it's
move through these quickly rather than going through all the
residential,
questions we had. If
never
you've
a
got
commercial in there.
questions you wanna
Like to
ask
see
us,
some
we'll
green
try and go
space.
through those as quickly
But
as
I have a
possible.
concern about this in the
For the microphone, I'll
summertime
just
as
ask.
becoming a
Raise your
trucking
hand if you want.
shortcut
Question or
between
comment?
North Street and School Street. And
Right next to Al.
I'm curious if there'd be
Speaking
any
of the mic, George.
intention of slowing that
George
down
Acker,
with,
Charlotte Woods.
with the barrier, you know,
One thing,
what they call sleeping farming, you know.
construction up there.
You know,
Prefer to see
speed
if
bumps,
it's
so,
Well,
residential.
that is, you know,
Never
that's,
commercial in
we
there.
had several comments on that in terms of traffic control and
But
speed, and
I
those
am
would be some of the
concerned
things that would be
about
looked
this in the
at
summertime
in terms
as
of identifying what
becoming
some of
a
the issues
trucking
are and what recommendations there may
Shortcut
be.
between North Street and School
Next.
Street.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
I'm curious.
I'm Denise DeShane,
If
I'm also
there'd
on
be
Charlotte
any
Woods, so I'll go next.
intention
But in
of
addition to what
slowing that
George
down
said,
with
and this is, my comments are representative of some of our neighbors, I didn't
what they call
hear from
sleeping
everybody,
farming,
but
you know,
we would like to see no commercial, we don't see that it needs to be municipal
That
or
is,
even
you know,
institutional.
that's-
And I
we've
think
had
by
several
institutional, we're
comments on that in
talking, people are
terms of,
thinking
traffic
assisted living.
control
I
and
think the
speed,
thought
and those
was,
would be some of the things
there
that
are
we
enough
look
of
at
those
in terms of identifying what some of the
facilities
issues are and what
nearby
recommendations
that it doesn't need to be in this parcel.
Mm-hmm. Next.
I think
ma'am.
that it's important to
Denise
our
Shannon
neighbors
was
that
from
it
Schaumburg Woods, so
maintain
I'll
a
go
natural
next.
look,
But in
as much
addition to
open
what
space
George
as
said,
possible.
and this is, my comments are
And there was a
representative of
comment
some of our
earlier
neighbors.
about,
I didn't, hear from
and I'm not like
everybody,
a realtor or anything,
but,
about the size of
we
house
would like to
lots,
see
but
no commercial.
there's also been
We don't
some
see that
discussion
needs to
among
be
us about
municipal
whether
or even institutional.
cluster housing or
I
whatever
think
it's
by
called these
institutional,
days is a
we're
good
talking
idea.
people
So
are
smaller
thinking assisted
lots,
living.
allowing
The
for
thought
more,
was there are
you
enough
know,
of
moderate
those
pricing for those
you know,
homes.
Right.
And then more
facilities
open space for the
nearby
community,
that it
whether
doesn't
it's
need to be
nature trails or
in
bike
this
paths or
parcel.
what have you.
I
I think there's a
that
desire among the
it's
folks that we
important
talk
to our
to
neighbors
that
that
it be
maintain
for
a natural
full-time
look,
residents,
as
if
much
we can
open
do that.
space as possible.
And particularly
and there
to
was a
serve the
comment
needs
earlier
of
about,
people who want to move here and
and
don't
I'm not
have
like
the
a
ability
realtor or
to,
anything about
you know, young
the
families,
size
people
of
who want to
house
work in
lots, but,
town, teachers, that
there's
sort of
also
thing,
been some
who don't
discussion
right
among
now
us
have
about whether
much,
cluster
many
housing or
options in
whatever
housing
it's called
stock in
these
this-
days is a
in
good
this
idea.
town.
So smaller lots,
I
allowing for
think
more,
some of the concerns,
you know, moderate pricing
a
for
lot of
those
people have already
homes,
voiced.
and then more open
It
space
is
for the
certainly
community, whether
unanimous
it's
among
nature
our group
trails
that
or bike paths
that
or what
road,
have
if it
you.
becomes a cut-through,
I think
whether
there's a
for,
desire
you
among
know,
the folks
trucks
that we
or
talk
buses
to
or just
that
people
it
trying to
be
get
for full-time
from North Street to
residents,
School
if we can
Street
do that.
way too fast is
And
a
particularly
concern.
to serve the needs of
I
people
think
who want to move
having
here and don't have the
environmentally
ability to-
friendly
you know,
housing,
young
if we can do
families,
that,
people
and
who wanna
lighting.
work in town, teachers, that
So
sort of
low
thing, who
light
don't right now
pollution.
have
Some of us,
much,
I
many
might,
options in
you know,
housing stock in
share
this-
with a couple
in
other
this
people
town.
being the closest, you know, my
I
deck, I can
think
almost reach
some of
the
the
road
concerns, a
from
lot of
my
people have
deck.
already voiced.
So low light
It is certainly
important.
unanimous among our group that
I
that
think
road,
in
if it
terms of the
becomes a cut-through,
connectivity question,
whether for, you know, trucks or buses or
I
just
think some of us read that as
Yeah.
concerns
From
about,
North Street to
about
School
traffic,
Street
about
way too
vehicular
fast
traffic,
is,
but I think
a
it is
concern.
important to have, whether it's
I think
sort of like a
having,
brattle path like Kennebunk
environmentally
has, or
friendly
something
housing, if
smaller,
we
you know,
can do
nature
that, and
trails
lighting.
for bikes and for
So
walking,
low
I
light
think,
pollution.
is something
Some
that
of
our group
us,
feels is important.
I might, you know, share with a couple
I
other people
think
being
that,
closest. My deck, I can almost
retaining
reach
some
the
of the
road,
property for some
from my
future
deck.
use is
So
important.
low light
And
is important.
having, but using that, I think that,
in terms of the
that land
connectivity question,
for nature trails in the meantime, or something like
I think
that.
some of us read that as concerns about
is
traffic,
appealing.
about vehicular traffic, but I think it
and
is important to have,
let's see.
whether it's sort of like a
I guess
rattle
the
path
only
like
other thing
Kennebunkport
I would
has,
raise
or
is I
something
assume
smaller,
that
you know,
in the
nature
financial
trails
studies,
for
there was
bikes
a
and
couple of
walking,
concerns raised about,
is something that our group feels is
you know,
important.
increased costs and increased
I think that,
pressure on some of our municipal services, but I
retaining
assume
some
if
of
this
the
is going to
property
be
for some
housing,
future
I mean, I
use
should also
is
say, I
important.
should stop and say,
And
look, our group would rather it just go
but
back to
using
nature.
that-
But presuming that's not gonna
that
happen,
land
we
for
prefer
nature
it to
trails
be
in the meantime or something like
housing
that,
and more moderate
is
priced housing.
appealing.
And that in itself should, let's see, those people who buy those
I guess
houses
the
will
only
be
other
adding
thing
to
I
the
would
tax
raise
base.
is I
So there, it's
assume
not
that in the financial
necessarily
studies, there was
a
a
cost
couple
to the
of
town,
concerns
it
raised
could be
about,
adding to our,
you know,
those who are
increased
providing,
costs and increased,
you know, spreading the
pressure
tax
on
base.
some of our municipal services, but I
And I
assume
think
if this is going to be housing, I mean, I should also
That's
say,
it.
I should
Yes.
stop and
Our
say, well,
schools
our
need
group
the
would rather
extra-
it just go
extra
back to nature.
folks.
But presuming
Thank
that's
you.
not
And
gonna happen.
thank you to the committee and to everyone else. I think
prefer
you're
it to
giving us
be
lots of
housing
opportunity to
and,
communicate.
more moderate
I'm going to go to
price.
Carl next, if I can.
And that
Just
in
I'm going to let
itself
Carl
should-
talk.
Those people who buy those
Get you the
houses
mic.
will be adding to the tax base. So there, it's not necessarily a cost
Oh,
to the town.
I think it got turned
We'll
off.
be adding to our, those who are providing,
Carl, maybe.
you know, spreading
I'm in a
the
butter
tax base.
between this property and the Weintraub property.
That's it.
Yeah, right there.
Schools need the extra
In
folks.
the original plan,
Thank
there
you,
were,
and thank you
there's
to the
two
committee
zones
and
here,
everyone else
village
for
residential
giving
and
us lots
what,
of
farm and
forest?
No, free enterprise.
Free enterprise.
I'm going to go to Carl next, if I can. I'm going to let Carl talk.
In the village residential zone, the original plan had called for some condo complexes. My wife calls them apartment buildings. But in that zone, right behind our house, where we are, right in there, and also by North Street. Have you changed your mind with this new plan? And since it's, the whole area is really
There's two zones.
single-family residential houses, would you still entertain having condo complexes, or would you keep it as single-family residences? This is a blank slate that the town's looking at what to do with the property, so there's no preconceived idea in terms of what's going to happen. So part of this whole process is to identify what the needs are for the community, where's the best location to put things. So there is no, in terms of your having followed that process, that project, none of that is part of this whole process. It's like looking at it almost as a clean slate, if you will.
Would you
Okay, well, I vote for single-family homes.
entertain having condo complexes, or would you keep it as single-family residences?
This is a blank slate that the town's looking at what to do with the property, so there's no preconceived idea in terms of what's going to happen. So part of this
As far as,
process. Could you just state your name again, please? For the community, where's the best location to
to
there is
answer your question,
in terms of your having
once
followed
the,
that process, that project, none of that is. Could I just ask you to state your name again, please?
Harrison Small,
Almost as a clean slate.
once this development is done, I think that the town would be very willing at each end of the road to put up signs as they do other places. Weight limits,
Could you just
and you
state
can
your-
keep
could
the
you just
weight
state your name
limits
again, please?
down as far as going through, so
answer your
these
question.
trucks, other than fuel oil suppliers or gas
Could I just ask you
companies
to state your name
can
again,
go through,
please?
but have it signed at each end, weight limit, and then have the sign saying, no truck over that weight, that the town would be very willing at each end of the road
Anybody else?
to put up signs as they do other places.
This is a chance for you to speak, because we really want everybody's input as much as we can to identify what
As far as going
what
through,
anybody
so
has as far as
these trucks,
issues.
other than
Yes.
fuel oil suppliers or gas companies can go through, but have it signed at each end.
Denora Ellis, when was this property bought?
Saying,
Werner,
no
what was the
truck
date?
over
Remember?
that weight
That when we
is
bought it?
allowed to go through.
And what was the intention of the purchase?
I'm talking to the microphone.
This is a chance for you to speak,
I would
because
say
we
this,
really want everybody's
this property
input
was
as much as we
purchased
can to
at the
identify
end of
what-
last summer. Sorry, I don't recall
what
the exact
anybody
date.
has as far as
but it
issues.
was,
I don't have the-
it was
I don't have
towards
the
the
date
end
either.
of, towards the end of last summer. That's when it was purchased.
Alan?
Denora Ellis, when was
Did
this
we vote
property
on it,
bought?
and what was the purpose of the?
We did vote on it, the town
Okay.
voted on it.
Great.
and
What was the intention when it was purchased? And what was the intention of the purchase?
I'm
Uh,
talking to the
The
microphone.
intention on this piece of property,
I'm going to say this,
was
this
we had
property
no
was
property to
purchased
begin with.
at the end of last summer.
close to
Sorry, I don't recall the
downtown.
exact date, but it was
a
it was towards the end
good-sized
of,
piece of property.
towards the end of last
And
summer.
we had a chance years
When it was
ago to
purchased.
buy it, and the town never moved on it.
Did we vote on it, and what was the
didn't want
purpose
to see-
of the?
I'm not speaking for everybody. I'm
Okay.
speaking for some.
Great.
That we
What
really
was
didn't
the
want to see it
intention when
developed
it
with
was
condo
purchased?
units, and would have no control over what was. The intention on this piece of property. So this way here, we have pretty much, the whole town has control of this piece of property. You as a voter have say in how we spend our money in the whole nine yards. And we also was looking for the future. We had a chance years ago. I can give you an example, years and years ago. And the town 50 years ago, we should have, at the time, we didn't want bought some frontal oceanfront property for a marina, for a public condo unit, for a boat launch. Well, they never did that. Now we can't afford it. I mean, in order for you to be able to go ahead and buy a big enough piece of property on the waterfront, you'd be spending probably $10 million. So we're never gonna probably see that. And a lot of people have always said in the back that we probably maybe have paid too much money. Years and years ago. But if you look at this property, 30 years from now, or 50 years from now, the people that's gonna enjoy this property will have a nice piece of property, and we will have, hopefully a few homes and whatever else on this property. We don't know what we're gonna do with it yet, but we're trying to find out. And this is one of the best things we've ever done for the town of Kennebunkport. You'd be spending probably $10 million, so we're never gonna probably see that.
Just
And a lot of people have
curious,
always said in the
what
back
would be the plan for the width of the road? Is that a
maybe
24-foot road? in
But if you
general.
look at this
Well,
problem.
right now, the way that was laid out was for 22 feet, so, but, those would be some of the design recommendations that may come, as out of the process itself, so.
And we will have, hopefully a few homes or whatever else on this.
Hi, Andrea Maybe, I'm also in a butter, and my concern thoughts are that I'm hoping that this time around, and I know it's completely different, and this is tabula rasa, clean slate, we're starting right from the beginning, which is
Just
wonderful.
curious,
But
what
I
would be the
remember
plan
that
for the width of the road,
one
that
point,
24-foot road?
development
in general?
plan.
Well, right now, the way that was laid out was for 22 feet.
Those multiplex
so,
units,
but,
which my husband
those would
was
be some of
referring
the
to,
design
originally were going to be
recommendations
on
that may
North
come,
Street,
as
and then
out of the process
they,
itself, so.
it was reviewed, and they decided that that didn't look like Kennebunkport, so
Andrea
they
Maybe, I'm also
had
on
that
the butter.
moved, and where they moved that to
And,
was in back of my house.
thoughts are that.
So my thoughts for this time around
and I
is,
know it's
just my
completely different, this
general
is tabula
view
rasa,
on this
clean
whole thing
slate, we're
is,
starting right from the beginning,
when
which is
considering
wonderful.
this plan,
But I
do it in the
remember
way that represents
one point-
Kennebunkport,
development,
reflects Kennebunkport,
plan,
looks like Kennebunkport, all the way around, not
those
just on
multiplex
North
units,
Street,
which my husband was
so
referring
that people
to,
driving by
originally
see
were
one
gonna be
thing,
on
and the
North
people
Street,
in the
and
back
then,
see another
they-
thing. So if there's
was
some
reviewed, and they
consistency with that
decided
in
that that
mind,
didn't look
and
like
that kind of
Kennebunkport, so
awareness and
they
sensitivity
had
to
that
Kennebunkport,
moved,
I
and where
think
they
we're,
moved that
it'll
to
be
was
great, no
in
matter
back
what
of
we
my
do.
house.
As long as it, it fits our
So my
neighborhood,
thoughts
it
for this
fits
time
our,
around is just my
scheme of
general
things, and
view
the
on this
benefit of
whole
our
thing is,
community. So
when
that's,
considering
that's
this
my
plan,
spiel on that, but thank you.
do it in the way that represents
Anybody else?
Kennebunkport,
Reflects
going up over there.
Kennebunkport, looks like Kennebunkport, all the way around, not just on North Street.
My
so
name is
that
Nancy
people driving
Green
by see
from
one thing,
Bishop
and the
Woods.
people in the back will see another
I
thing. So if there's some consistency
believe
with
that
that in mind,
most people
and
agree
that kind
that
of awareness
affordable
and
housing is
sensitivity
necessary
to
in our
Kennebunkport,
town
I
and
think
want to
it'll be
see
great, no matter what we do.
smaller,
As long as it, it
possibly
fits our
smaller
neighborhood, it
parcels
fits our,
and smaller units.
scheme of things and the benefit of our
Also,
community.
in looking to the
So
future
that's,
needs
that's
in the
my spiel.
town,
Thank you.
knowing that our demographic is such a
Anybody
number
else?
of
Yeah, going up over there.
older adults as opposed to a lot of young school-aged children in the town. My name is Nancy Green. I see the possibility that there's older adults living in larger homes that at some point would want to maybe downsize and live within the community and not have to leave the community. And I would hope to see that smaller parcels, maybe some of this housing was also deemed as senior housing in the town, knowing that our demographic is fulfill a need that I could foresee in older community with adults as opposed the numbers of aging school-aged children in the town.
Could you please
I see
state
the
your name again,
possibility
because I
that
didn't get
there's
it. It's hard to
Nancy,
hear.
older adults living
Nancy
in larger
Green.
homes that at some point would
And you're in Butter?
maybe downsize
Bishop Woods,
and
yes.
live within the community. And also, as other people have said, I certainly would not want to see any commercial use for the property. Very much into deemed as for recreation, trails and preservation, to fulfill a need
conservation,
that
et
I
cetera.
could foresee in
Thank you.
a community with the
Anybody
numbers of
else?
aging folks.
Could you please state your name? We still have plenty of time, so. if you have
Nancy.
any questions, now's the time to do it.
Nancy Green. Bishop
Thank you.
Woods.
Chris Perry. One of the things is that as the town owns this property, the town needs to take into consider what its needs are, the town's needs are. And I'm thinking specifically of the thought in mind that a municipal building, village building,
Anybody else?
has been a matter of a subject of some discussion for quite a number of years.
Please, any questions?
And
Now's the time to do
the
it.
current facility is a little bit small, a little bit on the cramped side, and it isn't getting any better, and there is very little that can be done with that particular piece of property to make it a lot better. Needs are the town's needs are, and I'm thinking specifically. One of the thoughts has been to take and have a new town hall, a municipal building, somewhere on this piece of property. Now, this qualifies in some people's mind, I'm afraid, as a commercial use. Discussion for quite a number of years. The town does need to take and consider what its needs are for the town, in addition to what the needs of the abutters are and future residents of the property. And I haven't heard anyone say anything about the possibility of a municipal building or a town hall, somewhere, or a consolidation of the various different, some of the various different fire departments. I believe there's a total of 5 that have been consolidated into essentially one chief, but there's still 5 divisions to it. And in addition to this facility here is a fire facility. It's one of the newer ones, but there are others in the town that are not as and I haven't heard any good and as adequate as this building. The possibility, like this for town hall.
We talked about what you just
consolidation
mentioned.
of the various
To a
different,
limited
some
degree.
of the various
And so,
different fire departments, I believe
Like
there's a total
Bob
of
says,
5
this is just the beginning.
that have been consolidated into
And all this is gonna be
essentially,
hashed out, and we'll
one
know
chief,
something
but there's still 5 divisions to it.
probably in the next month.
And we hadn't mentioned any of this since here, the fire session started at 5. One of the newer ones.
No, we haven't, not
and
yet,
there are
not
others
until you
in
just
the
did,
town
but
that are
we've had
not
previous
as
sessions, and we
good
have
and as
talked
adequate
about
as
it,
this
haven't we,
building.
Bob?
Firehouse,
Just 4, sorry.
We talked about what you just mentioned.
physical buildings?
No, we've talked about municipal buildings, and so a fire station is a municipal building. It's just the beginning.
I understand.
And all this is gonna be hashed out, and we'll know something.
Now, one of the pieces of infrastructure that will need to be considered, no matter what the use is things like the road structure so that it makes on an overall plan some sense. That is, it provides connectivity without taking and providing thoroughfares for misuse, and it provides for being able to take and service the various all the various areas with fire equipment and other equipment. Now, one of the pieces of infrastructure and the other one that needs to take and have some very serious consideration is what the use is, what to do with sewer service. Things like the use structure so that it makes overall septic systems and absorption fields is a technology that is without taking and providing inadequate for the future misuse and it provides for designed to eventually fail and will eventually fail and with long-term solution is inevitable to take and have municipal sewer treatment, wastewater treatment and sewer collection. And that's a complicated process because unlike the freshwater supply, sewer water runs downhill until it gets to a pumping station, then it can be pumped uphill, but sewers are basically built to run downhill, whereas the freshwater supply is a pressurized water supply and it runs wherever it needs to go, under pressure. Long-term solution
That was
is
brought up by Ms.
inevitably
Hayes
to take
at
and
Foxbury
have
Woods
municipal
about the septic
sewer,
system and the
sewer treatment,
hooking up to the sewer.
wastewater treatment,
But that's
and sewer
further
collection.
on
And
down
that's
the road.
a complicated
I believe that
process
we do have
because
an easement, don't
unlike the freshwater supply, sewer water runs downhill
Comment
until
on
it gets
that.
to a pumping
I
station.
lived in
then it
the-
can
in
be
a
pumped uphill, but
county
sewers are
in New York
basically
State
built to run
where
downhill, whereas
they used
the freshwater
large
supply is a
developments
pressurized
used
water
a
supply and it
pressurized,
runs wherever it needs
you
to
know,
go.
small diameter
That was brought
sewage
up by Ms.
system.
Hayes
Each house
Foxbury
had
Woods about
a
the
pump
septic system
in the house,
and the hooking up to the sewer.
a reservoir and a
That's
pump.
further on
Well,
down the
don't shake
road.
your head, Bob, because it works
I
very
believe that
well.
we do have an
And
easement.
it would, from the standpoint of this, within that 52 acres, you could easily run that and pump it out to the street where you have county in New York State, where sewage system. They use large developments, use a pressurized, you know, small diameter sewage system. Each house had a pump in the house. Anyway, a reservoir and a pump.
The original subdivision was
Well,
approved
don't
on,
shake
it
your
was
head.
fully serviced by public sewer. The sewer was extended to the
And
site, and there would have been a
from the
pump station on the
standpoint of
North
this,
Street side. But the
that
elevation change
52
from
acres,
School Street down
could easily run
is
that and pump it out to the street
40-something
where
feet
you
of
have
elevation change.
access to
So
the
there are some pockets where we would have had pump stations, individual unit pump stations, but public sewer could serve this. And as was mentioned by Alan, when this development was, the development that was proposed on here was reviewed, an easement was granted to Foxbury Woods to be able to, for them to ultimately be able to tie in with public sewer system. So public sewer definitely would be Sewer was extended. really to the only site. way you could There would really have been a pump develop this station on property. the North Street side. But the elevation anything else? change from School Street down is
Regarding his
40-something feet of elevation.
Regarding your comment on the force main, that
There are
is
some
certainly
pockets
a
where we
way
would
to
have
go.
pump stations,
It
individual
has
unit pump stations, but
its
public
costs
sewer
associated
served
with
this.
it, and
And
potentially it
as
has
was
its
mentioned by Alan,
savings.
when this development was.
But it's one of the
development was proposed,
possibilities
as
to be
reviewed,
considered.
An easement
It's,
was granted to Foxbury Woods to be able
uh,
to. for them to ultimately
It
able
may
to
be,
tie
but
public sewer
the
system.
individual has
So
to have
Public sewer
a
definitely would be
solids pump
really the only way you could really
in order
develop
to use
this
it.
property.
So there are costs associated with it that have to be considered.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Regarding your comment on the force main, that is certainly a way to go. It
My name
has
is Sarah Dodd. I
its
live
costs
in
associated
Bishop
with
Woods.
it, and potentially
Whatever
has its
kind of
savings.
development goes in there,
But it's one of the one of the possibilities to be
depending on the
considered.
size of it and what kind it is, I have concerns
may be,
about
but the
traffic
individual
impacts
has to have
on
a
North Street and all the streets
solids pump
surrounding this
in order to use
area.
it.
As we know, in the summertime,
there are costs
you can't
associated
get
with it that have to be
barely
considered.
past this parking lot, and the traffic backs up.
Anybody else?
I think the roads from our side of this development and everywhere around here, in Bishop Woods, you know, small little narrow roads. I really see traffic needs to be thought of more than people cutting through this development concerning traffic, but the whole surrounding area and the impact on traffic.
So you're looking at the
how
total
many
volume of
houses
traffic on North Street and through Duxbury is what you're looking at.
and our road, Northwood Drive, everything around here. From our side of this and I think the number of housing units, or if some kind of town building went in there, narrow roads, just keeping the whole picture in mind, the impacts, because we can't change the roads. Cutting through we can just add more volume. Concerning traffic, and that impacts your quality of life and the impact and people finding other ways of getting around.
How many houses?
So that's one of my thoughts. And as far as recreation and conservation, I love that idea, and as much of that as we can do. And I think would be my preference. And I would like to think outside the box, other than just a walking path or a bike path, which is fantastic, and I love that idea. But I also like other ideas, such as pickleball courts, some different things like that. There's a tremendous number of people in Kennebunkport and Kennebunk that play pickleball, and we are so locked out of places to go. I love that because of school, we can get into consolidated, but we're not welcome in other schools because they don't want to put pickleball lines down on their new gym floors and things like that. And that it's an aging community, lots of seniors, and people enjoy lots of different kinds of recreation, and to keep that in mind as well, since this is a lot of land that we could do things like that with, other than housing. Play pickleball, and we are so locked out of places to go. Northwood Drive, because of school, we can get into consolidated, but we're not welcome in other schools because they don't want to put
Thanks for
pickleball
inspiring
lines
ideas.
down on their new gym floors.
You know,
Can you just state your name again?
Sorry, Denora Ellis on School Street. One of the other things could be a community garden, which there's a COS, Community Outreach Services, that services right here in town, that on Fridays, people volunteer for that, and those community gardens could be used, that food could be used for that. Thanks for inspiring ideas.
Anybody else? Can
you know,
you just state your name again?
Sorry, Denora Ellis on School Street. One of the other things could be a
I want to answer there to
garden,
what he
which
said about
there's a
sewage.
COS,
When they
Community
put
Outreach
the,
Services, that
town
services
sewer
right here in town.
down on Turbis Creek
that
Road,
On Fridays,
from just a
people
little bit
volunteer
short
for
of
that,
the
and those
Rumline Motel.
community
It's all
gardens
gravity
could
feed down to a pump
that
station.
food could be used for
From
that.
Rumline all the way up to the Wild District Fire Station. Everybody had a septic tank put in, a grinder pump, and they get,
I want to answer
it
there
got sewage
to,
got pushed into
what he said
the
about
fourth
sewage.
main that comes from the pump
When they
station
put
at the end of the
the,
road up to the
town sewer
fire station.
down
And
on
that
Turbis
could
Creek
very
Road.
well work here, if some people out beyond where gravity sewer doesn't have pitch enough to reach, from Rum Line all the way up to the Wild District Fire Station.
Any other comments, questions?
Everybody had a septic tank put in, a grinder pump, and sewage got pushed into the fourth main that comes from the pump station at the end of the road up to the fire station. And that could very well work here if some people
You'll have
out
another opportunity,
beyond
you can all attend the
where
visioning session on the
gravity
13th.
sewer doesn't have pitch enough to
You'll have an
reach.
opportunity to hear a few things and then actually sit around a table and start putting some ideas on paper that we, as a consulting team, try to start working. Okay?
And that's one of our very most important meetings.
Sure. There's nobody? I'll get to what you just said. Did you ask something? I'm sorry.
No,
Okay.
I just said that was one of our, that'll be one of our most important meetings of public business.
Correct.
Do you envision
You'll have another opportunity if you can all attend the visioning session on the 13th.
is there a
You'll have an
timeline
opportunity
there?
to hear a few
I thought I
things
read
and
somewhere
actually
that there was a
sit around table and start
timeline
putting some ideas
for
on
something,
paper.
but maybe I'm
The
incorrect.
timeline is for us to finish the master plan, and that's the end of October.
That's one of our very
The
most
master
important
plan,
meetings.
again, is a guideline for the community to be able to move forward. So the whole process is to identify what types of uses really are suitable for the site, meet the needs of the community, are financially feasible for the community, whether it's out sale of parcels, public-private partnership ideas. I mean, there's a
I
whole
thought I
gamut
read
of
somewhere
things
that
that will
there
come
was a
out of this.
timeline.
You know, the feedback that
something,
we
but
get from the
maybe I'm
community
incorrect.
helps us identify what potential uses are. Our role is to try and take and assimilate all that stuff and put it together and then make recommendations of the next steps of how the town can move forward to actually see something happen.
So by October,
types
you
of
might hope to
uses
have, for
really are
example,
suitable for the site,
an understanding
meet the
that
needs of the
there
community,
is
are financially
consensus that people
feasible
would like
for the
to see
community, whether it's
recreation, so that'd be
out
one
sale of
category.
parcels,
And
public-private
another
partnership ideas.
idea would be
There's
to
a whole
have
gamut of things that will
municipal
come out of this.
buildings or
You know,
whatever
the
would be the
feedback
second
that we
category.
get from
So
the
you would like to
community
have all the
helps us
categories
identify
figured out
what
by
potential
October.
uses So before that, because then we have to do a financial feasibility study and then a master plan will actually identify those types of uses and where they can actually go on the property. So
And some
there
of
will
those
be,
October you
basically
might
what
hope to
you'll see
have,
at the end,
for
there will be a
example,
plan.
an understanding
The plan went away.
that
The plan of that lot area
people would like to
that
see,
will identify where
recreation, so
specific
that'd be
types
one
of
category,
uses
and
could go on the property that have been
idea would be
addressed
to have-
as part of this whole
And
process.
then
buildings or
there could
whatever
be,
would
well,
be
and this is
second
gonna be in
category. So
5
we'd like
years
to
from
have
now,
all
or
the
this is gonna be in 2
categories
years from
figured out
now.
by
So
October.
they'll also, for
Before
each of
that,
those
because then we have
ideas
to
or
do a
suggestions
financial
will come with
feasibility
some
study,
kind
and then
of
a master plan
plan-
will actually
well,
identify those types of uses
when
and
we
where
would
they
like
can
to see
actually
these
go
things
on the
happen. I
property.
mean, for
So
open
there will
space,
be
you
a-
might say,
basically
you
what
know,
you'll
we're
see
gonna
at
work
the
on
end, there
that
will be a plan.
in the next 3 years.
The plan went away. Basically, what'll happen out of this plan of master that lot plan is area it then gets turned that, over to the will town, identify and for where the specific types of planning board uses and the could go on the selectmen, property that have and been then take it to the next step of as how part to of this implement
And
some of this in
then
terms of putting a
there
schedule
could be,
together.
well, this is gonna be
Our-
5 years
at
from
the-
now,
at
or
the
this is
time
gonna
we
be 2
finish up,
years from now.
We're not
So
gonna have a
they'll also-
timeline that
each of
says, okay,
those
a municipal
ideas or
building ought to go
suggestions
here,
will
and it
come
needs to
with
go here
some
by
kind of
2022.
plan-
That's not
well,
what'll happen as part of the master
when we would
plan,
like
it's
to see
really
these
gonna
things
identify
happen.
what those
For
potential
open
uses
space,
are.
you might say,
Some of the
you know,
financial
we're gonna work
feasibility
on
will be
that
identified, and then what the
in the
town
next
has to
3 years.
decide is, how are you gonna be able to implement it, and how's it gonna be affordable to the town to, one, recoup money and not cost the big issues. You don't wanna have something that's gonna be a tax burden, which you want is something that's tax relief to get younger families in. So it's our broad, at the time we finish up, trying to achieve. We're not gonna have a timeline that says, okay, a municipal building
Bob,
ought to
could you
go
go
here,
ahead
and it
and
needs to
go
go
over the
here by
next dates
2022.
of July, so you can tell them what to expect?
One more question.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Identify
I just
what
wanted to
those
know, will there be
potential
another
uses
public
are,
vote
some of the
on the
financial
master plan, or
feasibility
will this be decided by the Board of Selectmen?
decide is how are you gonna be able to
I
implement
don't
it,
think it'll be a
and how's it
vote
gonna be
per
affordable to
se.
the town? It'll be a final presentation of the scenarios to this thing.
This is gonna be a
Process,
work-
something that's gonna
this is gonna
be
be
a
a
tax
working
burden, what you want is
This is
something
gonna be
that's tax
something, we're
relief.
gonna have a master plan, to be able to look at it and say, well, maybe 5 years from now, we don't wanna do that. Maybe we wanna do something different. Bob, could you go ahead and go over the next dates? This is something that gives us a roadmap, and tell them what to expect. You're looking at probably 30-year
I just
plan.
wanted to know, will there be another public vote on the
And
master
that
plan? or will
hopefully,
this be decided
that we
by the
will
Board of
have, everybody that I've talked to would like to see land set to one side.
It'll be a final presentation
You
of
never
the
know when you
scenarios
need
to
it.
this thing.
So, this is something that we're, you know.
And that's part of it. And again, you know, roadmap's another analogy, guidelines, what it does, it
Maybe
identifies
5 years from now, we don't want to
what
do
can happen
that.
to the property.
Maybe we want to do something different. We don't know.
considered
This
the
is something that
interest
gives
of
us
the
a
community to
roadmap.
have, then your next steps
You're
are,
looking at
how are you gonna
30
implement
years.
this? What makes sense? Then you start putting assignments to what is a priority from the town's perspective, based on the plan. That becomes the next step that goes forward with how things may happen.
You never know when you need something.
It's a I mean, it's a large parcel, and that's part of the potential for numerous types of ideas, and how that gets assembled and put together, and then ultimately developed. You know, if you're looking at you could be looking at 5 different developers, I'm just gonna throw that out there. But they may not all be interested in doing something right now, the town may not want it all happening right now. Part of the assessment's gonna be part of obviously something happening, is the infrastructure's gotta go in, that's gonna support whatever type of uses are. And some of those numbers will also be part of the financials, as to what it's gonna take to do, bring in utilities, constructing roads and things like that. So the town has the ability to look at it from the perspective, is that something in order to make, and I'm just throwing this out. You could be looking at 5 different developers, I'm just gonna throw that out there. But they may not all be interested in doing something right now, the town may not want it all happening right now. The sewer and the water. Part of the assessment's gonna be part of obviously something happening, is the infrastructure's gotta go in. That may be one of the options that gets flushed out of this whole thing. Or whether it becomes a public-private partnership in which you've got someone that wants to provide the affordable housing, and it's an equity share in how that is developed. There's a whole broad bunch of scenarios, so it's not going to be a one definitive answer. It's going to be an opportunity of options that the town can explore to see how you can actually make it work. So, there's no one answer, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Run it in order to encourage other development to come in.
Yeah, just to add a couple of things, you know, I've heard a couple folks have asked questions about, you know, things that residents could vote on, you know, as an example. So general categories, you know, that you have that, you know, that you all as residents vote on, you know, you vote on budgetary items. You vote on an annual basis, you vote on certain property conveyances that the Board of Selectmen have authority over. If there were any type of potential zoning adjustments that needed to be made that were outside of the scope of the current ordinance, those types of things would have to be voted on. So there's, and again, we don't know exactly what those may or may not be, but there are potential elements that, you know, would potentially have to come to the voters to be voted upon. You vote on budgetary items. You vote on an annual basis, you vote on certain property conveyances that the Board of Selectmen have authority over.
Property taxes come
If
about
there were any
to the
type
residents,
of
is that
potential
something
zoning
that goes up
adjustments
for
that
public
needed to be
vote, or
made
how
that
is
were
that?
outside of the scope of the current ordinance. So I'll speak generally about that, but, you know, your property tax is really is a mechanism of 2 items. And so you have the overall valuation of the town coupled with the budget. You know, those are the two, you know, those are the 2 mechanisms that you have. And so the valuation is, you know, is the, you know, the constructed and natural and land value of the town as it's assessed. You know, the second piece is a, you know, is a budget item. And so, you know, and that's a combination of, you know, for the most part, what we see is school budget, county budget, and the municipal budget. You know, your property tax is really is a mechanism and those 2 elements then are put together. And that's how we come up with the tax rate. Ultimately, a tax rate gets determined based on what the overall budget is that you have. And so, as far as the voters are concerned, you know, we have part of a budget process. You know, we have what I would say is a fairly lengthy process where it's Board of Selectmen and a budget board that look over all of the municipal components of a budget. What we see is, you know, that are voted on an annual basis. And a municipal budget. You know, so those are those 2 elements then are put together. And that's how we
Hi,
come
Judy
up
Phillips,
with
I'm
the
with
tax
Wallace
rate.
Woods. I have
Ultimately,
a
a tax
question
rate gets
that
determined
has not
based on
come
what
up
the
in
overall
any of the
budget
sessions that
is.
I've been at.
So,
And it's,
as far as the voters
permitted use of the
are
land right
concerned,
now
you know,
is
we have
obviously
part
it's
of a
town
budget
land.
process.
Is hunting
You know, we have
permitted?
what I would say is a fairly
Because not too
lengthy
long ago,
process where
I'm
it's
sitting on
Board
my
of Selectmen
on my
and the
back
Budget
porch,
Board
having my morning
that
coffee, and
look
there go
over all
a
of
couple of
the
hunters with their rifles
municipal
over their arms
components
and
of a
in their
budget.
camo. And I'm
that are
curious
voted
if
on an
hunting is a
annual
permitted
basis.
use while this is all being developed, if the plans are being developed.
As far as I know, yes.
Hi, Judy Phillips, I'm with Wallace Woods.
far as
I
I
have
know.
a question that
You
has
have
not
to
come
be
up
a
in any of
certain
the sessions that
amount
I've been at. And it's,
feet away from
the
a house.
permitted
I
use
can't
of the
say what
land
that
right
is.
now is, it's obviously it's town land. Is hunting permitted? Because not too long ago, I'm sitting on my back porch having my morning coffee, and there go a couple of hunters with their rifles over
Sure.
their
No,
arms.
generally speaking, in the state of Maine, on public
Curious if
properties,
hunting is a permitted
public
use
properties,
while
hunting
this
is a
is all
permitted
being
activity.
developed.
And so it's not really a zoning component, as much as it is, within the state of Maine, that's seen as a matter of, it's a permitted use. Now, granted, private property owners can post their property. Generally speaking, municipalities do not post their property, as it relates to hunting activities. The state does govern as far as distances that you're supposed to be from residences for whether generally it's, speaking, in the discharge state of of a Maine, firearm, on public properties, or, in public the case of properties, archery, hunting is a permitted activity. you have a So it's reduced, not really a
what
zoning component, as
call a
much as
reduced
it is,
setback,
within the
related
state of
to
Maine,
that.
that's
And again,
seen
that's
as a matter
all that's
of,
regulated by,
permitted
inland
use.
fisheries,
Now, granted,
wildlife,
private property
regulate that
owners can
piece,
post their
game
property.
wardens.
Generally speaking,
Werner, could you,
municipalities
put up our
do not
website
post their property
on the
as
screen
it relates to
and
hunting
explain to
activities.
people how they can
The state does govern
manipulate
as
the
far as
website to be able to go
distances
to
that you're supposed to
see
be
the
from
progress we're
residences
going
for
through
whether
this,
it's,
because it's gonna
discharge
be
of a firearm.
updated regularly.
Sure,
Or,
yeah. I'll
in
take,
the case of
archery, you have
take a moment
you
to
have
show folks
reduced,
that.
I'd call a reduced setback related to that. And again, that's regulated by, inland fisheries.
While Werner's bringing that up, I'll just go back through the schedule one more time.
Thank you.
So the next
Werner, could you,
opportunity for the
put
public
up our
to
website
participate is that
on
visioning
the
session,
screen
which is on the
explain to
13th
people
of
how they
July.
can
And as I said,
manipulate
it'll start at
the
8:30 in the
website,
morning.
go to look at
Public participation will run through to just about 1 o'clock, I think it is. So,
Sure,
and
yeah.
part of that
Yeah,
will
I'll
be,
take,
we'll do kind of a
take a
brief
moment to
summary
show
of the
folks that.
parcel again, to educate the folks that have not been through part of this before, so they understand what the property is. And then we're going to go through some exercises in terms of similar to what we did with the first kickoff meeting, is kind of showing some precedents for different types of housing, different recreation type uses and things like that. So we can start getting everybody to start think about what the vision of this property could be. And then we're going to break out by tables depending on how many people show up, in which a consultant and a member of the steering committee, a brief summary of the way back, I'm reiterating, you'll be sitting at a table with us and we'll be breaking out this in small enough groups that will participate, get input, ideas, we'll be putting them down written wise, bubble diagrams on a plan, we'll have precedents for different types of housing. In terms of a plan sheet to work with, you'll have some of the imagery to understand what potential type uses are, so that as a collection, we, at the end, then we're gonna go table by table and discuss what each table thought in terms of what should happen on this property. And then the big charge is for us as the consultants to take all that information and try and assemble some concepts in terms of what the master plan could look like. And so we'll be spending Saturday after that session here, here all day Sunday from 8 in the morning. I forgot to bring my schedule with me as to what time I said it would end. You'll have some of the imagery to understand what
are you
potential
talking
type
about
uses
the
are.
public presentation of the
As a
design or the
collection,
one?
we, at
The
the end,
Saturday and
Sunday,
Sunday,
the Sunday session and the Monday session, I think
it's
in terms of what should happen on this property. Saturday's till noon with the public, and then we come over here and reconvene as consultants at 1 o'clock, and I think we scheduled till 8 o'clock. Assemble some concepts. And so the public's welcome to come back in, give us a breather, so we can try and get something on paper. After that session, but just to come in and you can see what the process is, see what's happening, and have any other comments that you would like to make. And the same thing on Sunday, we'll start at 8 in the morning, I think we go till 8 at night again on that. And then Monday, we'll be again meeting at 8, and at 6 o'clock, we'll have a session in which we'll post it on the walls in here to present some of the ideas and some of the thought process, what potential concepts there may be. And so the public's welcome to come back in, give us a breather. Then from there, the next steps are to try and take all the information we received and try and find tune all that stuff, and as we do that, that'll be put up on the town's website, so
And the same thing on
people
Sunday,
can
we'll
keep
start
pulse
at
on
8
the
in the morning.
process.
I think we go till 8 at
You know,
night
the more
again
people
on
that
that.
participate
And,
in this plan, the better plan
Monday
we're
will
gonna have.
be, again, meeting at 8, and
We've got,
at 6
we've
o'clock.
heard a lot of good
have a session
ideas
which will
tonight.
Have things
or this
posted on the
afternoon.
walls in here
Not time yet,
to
but,
present some of the
We've
ideas.
heard a lot of
and
good
some of the thought
ideas
process
and a lot of good
what
questions.
Potential concepts there may be for the use of the
Werner,
park.
do you want to explain how they can find
And
where
from
they
there, the next steps are to try
Oh.
to take all the information we've received and try to find, tune all that stuff, and as we do that, that'll be put up on the town's website, so people can keep a pulse on the process.
Dick McCabe,
You know, the more people.
got part of it on school, you know,
This plan,
part of
the
your
better plan we're gonna have.
zoning is village residential,
Heard a lot
free
of
enterprise,
good
quite a bit of
ideas
difference
tonight.
there.
There is this afternoon. There is. But we have to take that into consideration. A lot of good
You're either gonna have to change your zoning, or the guy in free enterprise is gonna take a hit.
how they can find where they.
If he buys a piece in free enterprise, something to be thought about.
Like to have the zoning go through a piece of property. Part of it.
Dick
All right,
McCabe,
so what
got
I'll
part
do
of
is
it on
I'll just,
school, you know,
give folks a
part of
little bit of an
your,
overview of what the
zoning is
website looks like.
village residential,
This is
free
just the
enterprise.
town
Quite
of
a bit of difference there.
Kennebunkport's website, so this is kennebunkportme.gov. And so right on the
you're either
front
gonna
page
change your
here, we
zoning,
have,
or the guy
we
in
have
free
a
enterprise
tab
is gonna
here.
take a hit.
Oops, that's
If he buys a
noted
piece in free enterprise.
as Village Tomorrow. So you go ahead and
Something to be
click
thought
on
about.
that. What that does is that brings you to a separate page where we have,
so what I'll do is
you know,
I'll
where
just,
as we
give
develop
folks a little bit of an
information,
overview
it's
of what the
posted to this
website,
particular
looks
page.
like.
So we have our agendas,
this is just the
minutes,
town of
those of you
Kennebunkport's,
who are butters
website.
would have
So this
received
is
the, you know, the
kennebunkportme.gov.
neighborhood information packet. Our
And so
project
right on the front
overview,
page
and
here
we
we
have,
have,
you know, some
we
other
have a tab
categories
here.
where some of the different maps that we've looked at tonight
noted
are all
as,
located on this
Village
page.
Tomorrow. Go ahead and click on
As
that.
well, there's some additional information here that talks a little bit about, you know,
What
some
that
of
does
the
is that
meetings that
brings
we've
you
had
to a separate page where we
previously.
have,
And
you know, where
also,
as
as
we
we've been
develop
discussing the
information,
visioning
it's posted to this
sessions,
particular
that
page.
also gives
So we
you a
have
little
our
bit more
agendas,
of
minutes,
a better
those
description
of you,
of what those
who are butters would have
days
received
are going
the,
to look like.
You know, the neighborhood information packet.
As well as,
Our
you
project
can see on our
overview,
calendar,
we have, you know, some other categories.
different
where some of the different
upcoming
maps that we've
events.
looked at tonight
So you'll
are
see
all located on this page.
doesn't-
As
there we
well,
go.
there's some
So
additional
14th and
information
15th,
here that talks a little bit
13th,
about, you know,
14th,
some
and
of the
15th.
meetings that
We
we've
have
had
the Open Design
previously.
Studios.
And
then the
also, as we've
23rd
been
of July,
discussing the visioning sessions,
we have another
that also gives you a little
master
bit
plan
more
committee meeting
of
here
a
as well.
better description.
And so,
of what
so as
those,
those, you know, as
days
this
are going to
progresses,
look
you'll
like.
see all those items will show up on
as well
the
as
website. So
you can see on our
um,
calendar.
if you're interested in following us,
different,
then
upcoming
feel free to
events.
follow
So
and
you'll
check in
see-
on that page on a regular basis. Doesn't, there we go. So 14th and 15th.
Yes, there should be-
13th,
should
14th,
be a
and
link,
15th. We have the
for
design
email.
studios. And then the
So
23rd.
we do have
a separate email we have address. another, You know, if you'd
master
like to
plan
contact
committee
us with any
here as well.
particular questions,
So as
it's
those,
just village
you know, as this
at
progresses, you'll see all those items will show
kennebunkportme.gov.
up
Or
on
just a quick
the
question,
website.
when
So
you have those dates up there,
If you're
is there
interested in following
differentiate
us,
between public
then to feel
invited
free to
or-
follow.
or is
and
the
check
public
in on
invited to
that
all
page on a
those?
regular Public's invited to all of these
so you don't need
meetings.
to, that doesn't need to be.
Yep, you don't need,
Perfect.
don't need a
Okay.
special invitation, you know, come to any of the
Thank
meetings
you.
that are on that schedule.
Yeah, these are all open.
So we do
Warner?
have a separate
always
email
try at the end of
address,
the meeting,
you know,
we always try
if
to
you'd like to
make sure that
contact
if
us
there's
with
any
any
questions
particular
from the public,
questions,
that they have every
it's
right
just
to ask.
village at kennebunkportme.gov.
Warren, just a quick question.
I don't think
You have
Harrison
those
has this.
dates up there. Is there differentiate between public invited or is it invited to all those?
Public's invited
So-
to all of these
So you don't need
meetings.
to, that doesn't need to be.
Yep, you don't
Paul,
need,
do you have
don't need a
anything
special
else?
invitation, you know, come to any of the
I was
meetings
saying
that
thank
are
you
on that
for
schedule.
participating, and hope to see the same faces at the visioning session on the 13th.
We always try.
This is your community, and that's the key part to this thing. We're all stakeholders, and for us to be able to develop a sound plan, we need to understand what everybody's thought process is on this, and not design it in a vacuum. So,
Warner, do you have anything else? How about the steering committee? Do they have- No questions, answers. One more time for the public. Rob, do you have anything else? Okay.
I would say thank you for
Can I have a motion
participating.
to adjourn?
Hope to
So
see
moved.
the same faces at that meeting.
I heard
This is your
motion,
community.
I heard second.
Keep part of it.
All in favor?
For us to
Thank
be
you,
able to
everybody.
develop
It's been a
this
great
plan,
meeting.
we need to understand what everybody's thought process
Steering committee, do they have anything? No questions, answers? One more time for the public.